Oh, yeah, Pimp My Ride was pretty good. Yeah, going through because I didn't watch a lot of. I did watch Disney, but I didn't watch Nickelodeon for sure. I watched very little Nickelodeon. Like if it was on at my cousin's house, we would watch it. But like if I was home, nah.
With the Nickelodeon, for me, it was more just Nick at Night.
Oh fuck! I forgot that was a thing too.
So it was mostly like My Wife and Kids, the George Lopez show.
Oh yeah,
My God, George Lopez.
George Lopez haunted my dreams.
Dude, yeah, when you would fall asleep and that intro would just, or the outro would just be playing.
Yeah.
Damn, and just people on a trampoline just bouncing into the screen. Oh, great memories. Yeah, a bunch of like Fear Factor, like going back to Spike TV.
Oh yeah.
Fear Factor. Oh, there was, like a Thousand Ways to Die or something like that.
Yeah,
just all those shows.
What I was thinking of 1,000 Ways to Die. Yeah.
Oh god, I remember watching like I think it was on TNT. It was like the old Charmed show.
Charm?
Yeah, Charmed.
See, that sounds familiar, but I don't think I watched that.
Then there
Send
was
yeah, I don't remember Send Invite. What was that show about?
yeah, what was that one about? I don't know. To this day, though, Roly Poly Oly still gives me nightmares.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know that one.
What was that on?
Oh, old kid show.
Was that on? Was that PBS?
PBS Kids. Yeah, PBS Kids.
Roly Poly Oly. Bear in the Big Blue House.
Oh yeah. Arthur.
Zaboomafoo, Out of the Box. What was her name?
Was it PBS that had Hey Arnold?
It might have been on there, but that feels more Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
My game might have just crashed. I can't tell yet.
Shit. I don't. That sucks. Yeah, I think your game did crash because you're no longer in the party.
Sick. And now my OBS is dying.
No.
Not the OBS too.
No.
Oh, it was because my game was crashing.
Oh, so I was processing it.
Yup, but now it might have actually crashed my streams.
I mean, your stream is still going. It's just choppy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're back. Yeah.
Let me refresh on your channel. Also, hi chat. We've just been talking about shows and stuff for a little bit. My bad.
You know, shows that traumatized you as a kid.
I mean, I don't think any of the shows we listed traumatized me as a kid.
George Lopez.
I wasn't traumatizing. It would just wake up to a loud trumpet or whatever instrument that was.
Yeah.
Hi Squids. Why was it always so loud? Wait, what? What was so loud? What happened?
Intro, I think.
Oh, is that?
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, that is a great question. Like, why did it have to be so loud? Especially
it didn't matter what volume you had it on. Yeah. Those sons of bitches.
At night, why would they do this to us?
Rude ass people, dude.
Black Ops back up.
Okay.
Let's try and boot the blops back up.
The blops.
Take your time, Billy. Take your time.
Those sandwiches, though, so good.
Dude, that sandwich did look good. That sandwich looked fire AF. Oh wait, were you able to just join on? No way.
I hadn't. No, I had an invite from you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool
I thought
too,
you had
because I didn't
sent
send
another
another. No.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
Well then, here, if we're ready, dude, I don't want to wait any more time to allow
Yeah,
it to
we're
crash.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Already banned one chatter from my kick stream, so let's
Love
do
that.
it.
Hell
Way
yeah.
to christen the stream.
Gotta.
All right, Jordan, you ready?
Yep, I'm good. I'm recording.
Hell yeah! All right, chat, let's do
Let's
this.
do it. I'll be the first to say I know nothing about this map, so well,
So
not
good
not
fucking
nothing,
luck.
not nothing, but I know very little about the Easter egg. So
Hell yeah! Well, first we have to turn on the power, and then we have to play Simon Says.
awesome, love that.
Oh god.
Oh, I forgot about the sensitivity. Holy crap!
I forgot that this is a death sentence if we stay here too long.
Do you want to use this as like a play time to get your shit together?
I mean, I just had to turn the DPI down on my mouse. I think I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Be
You
ready
good,
to
Jordan?
run.
Yeah.
Ready to run.
Yeah. Okay, run.
Apparently missed all those bullets.
Yep, running.
I'm on the teleporter.
I'm on teleporter.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
You survived 37 seconds.
37 seconds.
Breath. Quit talking.
Yay!
Okay. If someone wants to open the first door, I can go open the next one. Do we know which way we want to take?
I've always wanted to
I
be
think
a space
doesn't
marine.
one door open both?
Yeah,
At least at this
and
level.
this one door opens
Yes.
both for
Yeah,
sure.
this
yeah.
one door does, but
Yeah.
it's more of a matter of do we want to go left or right after.
We're gonna have to open up the doors anyways, so it doesn't matter right now. Breaking news: Count Chocula, the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man, and the Teddy Grahams Bear have all perished in a fire s'more at 11. That's funny. What's up, Doc? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
I think I can
yeah,
buy
which-
all the way to power.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
are we going?
It doesn't matter. Just pick one. Just pick away and go.
I'm gonna go on where Billy's at.
All right, I'll buy
So you
it.
go down those stairs to go all the way across. The fuck kind of sense does that make?
I was on that side killing a zombie.
Though you know, a little this, little that. Oh, there's a radio right there. I'm not gonna activate it yet because when we turn on the power, we can take off our helmets and actually listen to it.
Oh god, I forgot about how weird the gravity is.
What are you talking about? That's not weird. Not at all.
Yeah, it
Power
is.
is on.
Yay, the
Holy
OG
shit.
MPD.
Look at her. Look at how smooth she is.
Yeah, right. That's what I was actually just
And
thinking.
I also opened the next door.
And so
I'm
is
like,
the doctor.
this pyramid is
Okay.
smooth AF.
Excavator Epsilon.
Call timeout.
Oh, we need to turn that off. Though we need the biodome, not excavated. Where-
I don't think we have to worry about excavators right now.
All I remember from the Easter egg is the biodome does not need to be excavated. It is one of the worst places for it.
Yeah, I think we just need to worry about 6, and we need to let it be excavated.
I have the hacker.
Oop.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hello.
I've opened the
Look
next
me in
door.
my eyes.
Oh. I will.
Alright, I'm about to be ballsy.
You're tough and you're dying.
Not anymore.
Trying to remember if the excavator gets stopped at spawn. I think that's where it was.
Yeah, it should be one of the panels that spawn.
Question is where?
I think it's this right here.
Excavator
shit.
station not active. Oh,
Oh, or is that?
Oh, it's this one, the one that's blinking right here.
I just blind.
Right here.
Oh, over here.
I must be seeing double. I hope I'm
Hacking.
seeing double.
Got it. Hey, I got an achievement for it.
Time to
Oh,
die.
nice.
Oh, did not mean to do that.
Get back in the ground.
Oh, hey Susie.
Susie Q.
Get off me, Susie.
Get teleported
Oh
to
shit.
leave.
Oh shit. This is bad.
Oh, I just got double sniped from behind.
Susie TP'd me to the worst place possible. Inside the power room.
Oh my god.
Oh, what up, Fearless? How are you, dude?
I ain't a good jumper anyway. Why am I jumping so slowly?
I'm gonna try and revive you.
It's all good. I'm just
I'm
sniping
on my
Susie
way.
Q over here. Or I'll start crawling backwards.
I'm gonna go for it.
You got it. Plenty of time.
Oh,
Nice.
did
Sick.
I pass out? Must not
Who are
have
you,
been
Susie?
drunk enough.
Not bad. I'm still in first on the leaderboard. Dude, heck yeah. That's awesome. By how much? What's second place at?
Your face offends. Now die. Quiet kill. Let's make this messy.
I gotta go by
This should help a little bit.
a little bit.
That'll teach you to touch the red menace.
I gotta go buy a weapon though.
I am
Yeah.
going to go
This
open
gun
the
requires
biodome
too much
because I think that's
with
where
the
box
scoping
is.
and the aiming.
M14 gang, baby. Oh
I
my
think my
god.
hit was better, hell pig.
Scared the crap out of me. 18,000 a second. I'm still at 36. Dang, dude. Literally double second right now. It's crazy. Good job, man. Oh, you're.
This
You're-
is this is the biodome.
You're Simon Sezing.
Box is outside. Got
That
it.
really hurt, zombie. I think I may bruise.
Oh, I forgot Simon Says was part of the Easter egg.
But oh my god. Double swiped again. One zombie
Oh,
right
shit.
behind me.
I'm coming.
Shit's
Who else
ruthless,
wants
man.
Some of this?
Yeah.
No dice, gutter sluts. Have a seat, freak junkies.
Just waiting for Susie to get closer.
Try new low beacon. Available at the end of my
Taking
gun.
back shots like it's your job. Damn. Not the back shots.
Thanks for helping. Wait a minute.
Just hold a zombie, and then
Gosh.
if I can either get back to the Simon Says, or one of you can go do it.
I'll try it out. I didn't see what the. Great. It flashed already.
Oh, nice.
Alright. Red, green, blue, yellow.
So you start with red, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. I just had to make sure I knew which ones were which. Yay! Did it!
That's the first one.
So, does that just activate right off the bat? Do we not need to, like, is it just power turns that on, basically? Or is there
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
before?
Oh, hi. Hi, Crawler. Hi, Crawler boy. Don't.
So there's no, like, real prerequisite for that. You just need to have power on, then come do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if you guys want to know where box is, I can take you to it. It's not in the biodome. It's on the outside.
Go back to the second story of the lab and hack the 4 wall panels quickly from left to right. That's the next step.
That's right. I do miss this map. Just hated that you had to always have a helmet on. I mean, not if you're brave enough. You could run through the.
Then there's
like
me who doesn't have the
literally
helmet
like
on right now.
like what Jordan's doing right now. This man right here,
I'm
no
ballsy.
helmet. It's because he's got the hacker.
I mean, I got the hacker now.
Oh, you just took it off for shits. Cool.
For shits and giggles, yes.
Yep. Nice. Sorry,
That's
not
what he
just shits,
does.
the shits and giggles. Right.
Just the shits. That's why he took it off.
Oh, goody.
Only shits, no
A
giggles.
new thingy
That's me
to
right now.
figure out.
Only the shiggles.
Oh wait, hold on. I don't like shiggles.
I have a nuke. Do you want me to use it?
Blackjack,
I
free
do not
sex.
care.
You lose.
Oh,
Well, that's not good. Also, the things you need to hack are down here, by the way.
Oh, before the mighty
I
Cossack.
got trapped by a.
Alright.
So you
Good
can pick
call.
them up.
Brawl.
Yep. Where?
Later,
the
sucker.
heck? There you are. Reviving.
Howdy.
Come back over here and hack these.
Yeah,
Oh
be a
gosh,
good
where's
little
the-
hacker.
Oh god, I don't know where the downstairs is
Oh,
down
right
here. I missed the door.
We're just
It's
crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Oh,
these
these
right here. You
guys?
need to hack,
Yeah,
you need
yeah.
to hack all 4 of
Do
these.
you
just
remember
back to
in
back.
what
I want to
order?
press your button.
I think
Is
any
this just from
order.
left to right?
Oh, okay, left to right. Yeah. My bad. That would make sense.
Each hat costs 500.
Oh yeah, that's a thing. Well then here, set the hacker down. I'll do it.
Yeah, I gotta grab this.
I'll waste my money. Oh, we have to go all the way back so you can grab the suit. Oh, that's right.
No,
Right
there's
here. That makes sense.
So the hacker's not this one.
Is it?
Not at that one. Not that one.
Is it
Oh,
right
it's
here?
right here.
Yep.
Right here.
All right. Let's start doing.
Oh, goody.
Oh, I can't turn around and like look around.
You're fine. We got the crawler.
Yeah. I just. Ooh, in Moon hack something. Okay, so I did one. Wait, hello?
Maybe this will dispense
The-
vodka now. Please.
It said reboot initiated, reboot in T minus something, but then I can't hack the others.
Put the hacker away and then open it back up.
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, so we failed that.
Goody. A new thingy
failed it?
to figure out.
Yeah. Because it just...
How-
The buttons did something and then it said access denied. Huh.
Is there an order to them?
No, it let me do the first one just fine, but none of the other ones had a prompt on them at all.
Yeah, and the step just says go back to the second story of the lab and hack the 4 wall panels quickly from left to right. Oh, I heard a chime.
Oh,
Yeah, it just said access denied again.
thingy to figure
What did you do?
Oh, wait a minute. This glowed green up here.
Okay, so yeah, it's these. It's some of these. Okay.
What is it?
So they're down here as well. They're all over.
Oh, these guys?
Okay.
when
yeah.
he
So
did
okay.
Oh,
I
I
have
see.
to. This is now available. Okay, all of these are available for me to hack again. Wait.
Oh, because they're lifted? Oh,
yeah.
they're closed.
Like I have the option to hack all of them now.
goody. A new thingy to figure out.
Okay, I'm confused.
Jordan, are you interacting with anything?
No.
Interesting. Why did it do that? It's almost as if I just walked up to it and then they closed.
Yeah. I see them. I do. I see them all open right now. And as I walk up to them, they close. I wonder if that's just a texture thing. No, because now they're not opening with you next to them. Now they are open. What the heck? That's weird. Okay, yeah, I would need to know what I'm doing more. Because there are these other little panels all around that Jordan did mention. One was glowing green. I didn't think I remembered it was something to do with these, so... don't know what. What does hacking a wall by do for you? Like a wall gun?
I have no
You
idea.
can hack a wall gun for 3,000 points.
Oh, goody!
Okay.
A new thingy
Let's
to
see.
figure
I'll
out.
just do this, and then I'm gonna run around and see if any of these things are green, I guess.
Ooh, I'll
Yeah.
stay downstairs then, so that way I can help you look faster.
Okay.
Oh, there's something green down here.
Oh, I got one right here as well. Hacking this.
Okay.
I mean, shoot. Oh, hey,
Got
there's one green right
that.
here.
Yep.
Yeah, right here.
Let me hack this one.
Oh shit, I'm dying.
Found another green one right here.
This one.
I diddled the knob thingy.
And then, yep. I hear buzzing right here. Is there any more? I've gotten 3
Yeah,
so far.
yeah, there's one more. I'm looking at
Okay.
it right across. Right over there.
Oh, okay. Here. Okay, hacking this one. System files accessed. I think that was all of them then. Yeah, I
did
hear
4.
no more buzzing. Yeah, and they were making a pretty loud buzz, so.
So what did you do to start that? Did you hack the
Oh.
first thing on the left?
Yeah, all these buttons are open now. So you just hack any of these, I think, and then it starts that step of needing to run around looking for those green ones.
I see.
Because now, if I pressed a button, press, 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 press. Pressed all 4.
What did that
I don't know
do?
what it did.
Now I need to wait until you create the excavator pi or P, whatever it is, going to breach tunnel 6. Let it breach tunnel 6 and hack it back up using the hacker on the terminal in spawn.
Okay.
So now we're waiting for terminal 6 to be breached.
Gotcha.
Or tunnel 6, whatever.
Tunnel 6, yeah. But so yeah, these buttons are now pressed. They are pressed.
Okay. Cool.
We have to do all of this in 60 seconds, by the way.
What?
All of what?
The hacks.
He already
Oh,
did
well, we
them.
did it. Yeah, it's done.
I thought you were supposed to do all 4.
I did.
He already did.
Oh. And it didn't make you do that
Well-
ridiculous step again?
Oh, no, so yeah, you just hack one of those buttons down there to start the step, and it makes you hack 4 of those green lights around, and that's it. You just do that once, and you press all the
Yeah,
buttons
and then
down there.
yeah, then after you did that, yeah.
So now we're on to excavator 6 or whatever, tunnel 6 with the excavator or whatever.
Can
it
you
is.
open that door, please?
Don't jump on the jump pad.
Eyes on the moon. What's next?
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I put the hacker down. I went and grabbed the helmet.
Sick.
Uh-oh. I hopped on the jump pad. Oh my god, I almost died.
Oof.
That was almost scary.
Alright, Kimmy, you can kill it.
I'm not near it, so-
What?
Oh, there's the
We had to
box.
kill the thing, right? To,
Well, where's the box so I can hit
It's
the
outside.
Oh, it's outside.
All right, I get to be a sniper for once.
I don't want to be a sniper, Dempsey.
Where's... Oh, is it over here?
Oh, I fucked up. Oh, I fucked up.
Nice. You survived, though. For now. Oh, gosh. I fucked up, too. Oh!
This'll work.
Oh, I survived.
What happened?
Billy did not.
What did
We
you
both touched
do?
the pad. I got him.
How are you supposed to not touch the pad?
You jump
You're
over.
supposed to, if you
Oh,
touch
you
the
jump
pad,
over?
All right, all right.
No, I
You
did.
helped me. Now
Well,
I
yeah,
just
that
go
was
to the
good.
side.
Last
And now it's
tried,
not glowing anyway, so you're good.
I was gonna say, I literally did. I went as far to the side as I possibly could have, and it still launched me.
Oh, I fucked up.
I made sure not to touch it.
I don't want to be down here.
That sucks. You have to make your way back. Loser.
Oh, I just got what are these
Does this come
QEDs?
with instruction manual?
Oh, nice.
I don't have any more points.
Nikolai just wants to buy nice
Yeah,
things.
I got QEDs.
Like 80 proof vodka.
That's mucho más importante.
I am taking the hacker and I'm going to spawn.
Yep, we just gotta wait for
Okay.
tunnel 6.
Where's the zombie? We can kill it.
No idea.
Jordan,
Nor
what did you
idea.
do? What did you do with the
I didn't do
zombie?
anything.
Let's all just go to spawn and wait for zombie, I guess.
Oh, I think I hear it. Did I hear it? Nope.
Oh, I
Never
think.
mind.
Oh, it seemed like it. Oh, I hear a teddy bear or some collectible item. I heard the.
Heaven Spy Ike says a housefly landed on a candy bar I had sitting on a saucer. You might think it's a waste,
Alright.
but
Well,
I'm not
we're just waiting
upset.
for excavator 6
I
now.
finally have proof
Or
that there
tunnel
is
6
life
to be
on
excavated,
Mars.
sorry.
Heaven Spike. That's very fitting considering the Easter egg that we completed yesterday. I hope you're doing well. Thank you. Thank you for the daily dad joke.
That's great. Very fitting considering the map we're doing now and the map we did yesterday.
True, yeah.
That's great.
Where's this zombie at, man?
Zomboni.
Hey, by the way, tunnel 6 is the one that's open.
Yes, that's correct. So we should open the other door too. That way we have travel around. Good call. And I am 30 points off, so I cannot.
Schmat.
Come kill this zombie.
Well, someone over there has 800 points.
Yeah, I'm going. Oh, shit.
Also, where is the zombie? I don't see it still.
I hear it.
Do you?
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, you found it finally? Jeez.
Yeah.
Did you really find it?
Yeah. He
It's
respawned.
about dang time.
Holy
Okay. Gee, I missed like every bullet. That was nuts.
fuck. You
No one
let
saw
him
that.
slap me. How fucking dare you?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You see that? You're activating my cough.
Also, please don't throw a grenade in here.
Oh.
I'm gonna do
okay.
it. Me and Billy,
No, if you
we're
throw a
gonna grenade it
you
up.
could- you might actually, no, seriously, don't do it.
It just blows up in the windows. We just mandatorily
Yeah,
have to wear.
I don't have the device to, keep myself alive. I
Well,
have the
luckily it didn't do anything, so we're okay. Oh my gosh.
That really hurts, zombie. I
I'm
think I may bruise.
bad.
Billy, are you okay?
Oh. Oh, excuse me. I almost just got trolled by the zombies and the little launch pad thingy.
I think
Yep.
my hit was better.
Fuck, I am not doing okay today.
It's
Oh,
okay,
double
Billy.
point.
Ugh, I'd hate to clean that up.
You carried me in Ashes and Astra, so it is my turn to return the favor.
Great.
Yay.
Keep 'em up.
I'm hard carry for modern day zombies. Freaking old school zombies, classic zombies. I am a hard anchor, brother. I just weigh the team down.
You're good, man. Movement and FOV and literally everything else is completely different.
I can solo most modern day anything zombies, but classic zombies, brother, I don't stand a chance.
God, running and reloading. Who knew that was a luxury they afforded us?
Oh, dang it.
Nikolai is flying!
Uh-oh.
What?
Are you in the
Alright.
dome?
Yes, that's okay. Just leave me. I'll respawn next round.
Not if I can help it, Billiam. Not if I can help it, Billiam. Oh, damn it. I can't help it.
Oh my god, guys! Where are
There's-
y'all at?
Why did my points go down?
Because Billy, he bled out.
Oh.
Oh
our
my
phone?
gosh.
Nope. Sorry, bud.
I was about to say, imagine the double swipe right there in that doorway. And it almost happened.
And
Yeah. Uh-oh. Nope. That's game.
Ooh.
so stay. I guess let's
Oh, I'm sorry, I had
Let's-
5 downs? What?
How did I have 4?
until we have Jugger. I guess let's just stay close together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good call.
Because unfortunately, Jugger is on Earth, and we have to go back for it.
Right.
It depends.
It's Speed Cola or Jug, so it's 50-50 if we
Yeah.
can get it. If we start the match and Speed Cola's there, that's ideal. But it's all RNG.
Yep.
Are we ready,
Yep.
Jordan?
And if we can do
Yep,
it
I'm ready to
quick
go.
enough, now that we know how, we can try and do, if we get lucky enough with Excavator 6 on first, or Tunnel 6 on first Excavator, then we can do it. Because we got to power quick enough, and we had the hacker in hand when the first Excavator came down. So, I think we'll be alright.
Why they call this place Paradise Ranch is beyond me. Desert sucks.
Nice.
It-
Speed Cola.
During this portion, I try to get as much points as possible so I can open the big chunk of the doors.
Right. It's just, it's very dangerous for a bad player like myself.
It's easier if only one person was actually out doing it.
Never get.
Ah, so you just want to be a point horror, so I'm here.
Oh no, not at all. Fuck that. Yup, that shoots myself. I don't want to.
I'm out of ammo anyways. That was 1 second less than last time.
Dude, air.
We had
Tell ya.
37 seconds last time. We had 36 seconds this time.
Open the door. Open the door.
Weird.
Open first
the
since
hell
I have
are
these
we?
points. Oh my gosh.
Oh, out
I
of
guess we'll go
ammo.
Route 11 this
Maybe
time
if I
since
just
Route
walk
6 has to
around
be
like the
excavated.
zombies, they will ignore me.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't open the door.
Because you bought a weapon.
We just staring you down like motherfucker.
Oh, can we not vault over this? Oh my god, we can't. That's dumb.
There's no jumping over anything.
Last door is 750.
Oh, and right here, inside of the... Can I ping?
No.
Oh shit.
There's no
I just-
ping.
This is where the ball will get stuck when we're having to move it around.
Yeah. Whoa, we got a nuke already? Damn.
I
Nice.
knifed one zombie.
Here, you want to open this door, Crims? Oh my gosh, 1250.
Why am I?
Oh, there's a radio here.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
What round does the first excavator come down?
That's a phenomenal question.
Yeah, that was a great question. I think the next round? No, once we turn on power, I think is when it comes down.
Whoa, watch out.
Well, do we have the right path to do the hacking?
There's only one path for the hacking.
Yeah.
Oh, both like I meant like both Tunnel 6 and Tunnel 11 lead to the same place. Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. Okay.
Oh yeah, I guess there's no map that you can pull up.
Because the lab is up there.
Right. Okay, that makes more sense. Gotcha.
Which you should be able to open that.
I hear ya. Yep, got it. But I don't have enough to do the hacking. So we only need 500 points for this, because all the other things don't cost money. You need 500 for the initial hack, and then you just go around looking for the greens.
But we also have to get 1,000
Simon
on
said.
the third floor.
Oh, true. Yeah, and we need to do Simon Says still, so I'm gonna go back to
Anyone
spawn.
order a steak rare? Still squirming. A fountain of pain! Blackjack, freak sacks, you lose.
Oh, I have no weapon.
I got double tapped. It's fine. There's nothing in here.
I think my hit was better, hell pig.
Or now there is. Now there's stuff in here.
Oh, why did it stop reviving you?
I am alive.
Are you all okay?
Yep, we're doing great.
You dare touch me, minion?
We're good.
Get back, gutter slug.
We're doing fantastically.
Grim, since you almost have enough points, can you open the next door?
You forgot to pay your
What?
cover charge.
Yeah, double swipe. Because I'm running around with just a knife.
Griffin Station, follow me.
Oh, lots of zombies there. Don't do what I just did.
Did you miss Nikolai?
Don't really know how I squeezed by them like that, but I did. Oh. Oh, I made it by him. The what's his face?
Oh, the
was-
astronaut.
Yeah, the astronaut was right in front of me.
Wouldn't it be nice if ammo regenerated?
Wouldn't it
The
be nice?
Russian can dream, can't he?
Goodbye.
Fuck off me. Well, thanks for teleporting me back to spawn, you turd.
Oh, this gun requires
Oh.
too much work. With
Actually,
the
not even at
skull
spawn.
being
It
at
teleported me to
the
power.
end, I need a
Now I have to go back.
back to hell. Now that's what I'm talking about. Screw you, machine. You didn't do it right. Time to die. Good
Fuck
time.
out of my way.
You attacked the doctor? Yeah, die!
Hey, you want to go ahead and start Simon Says?
I'm already doing it.
Yeah, he's doing it. I'm defending him.
See ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Hoorah!
I'm here to help.
Hell yeah.
Oh, the glorious blood!
Okay, I can't help anymore.
Yay, did it.
Nice.
So now we need to hack, right?
Yep.
Oh, I'm not buying my gun.
Shit.
So yeah, let's save
The
ZOMS
homeostatic
and
functions
get this
of the
hacking
all
done.
mine.
Because once we
All
do
mine.
this, we will be on the excavator step. Which I just realized we had gotten really lucky with last game because I had gotten QEDs so early. And
Oh,
no
I
longer.
forgot you had QED.
Yeah, me too. That could have saved my life. Or wait, no, I had died to the freaking launch pad at the end there, so wouldn't have done me any good anyways.
Ah, the
It's
uprisers are
okay.
so wunderbar from here.
Do we still need this third floor open?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, someone's gonna need to open that. Where even is the hacker?
Start.
Are you already doing it? Oh, okay. Well, say something next time.
I got it. I'm starting it now.
Yep.
That's his MO. He usually
Uh,
tries to do it without saying anything.
There's one upstairs. There's only one upstairs, so
Okay.
and it's in that back
There's
corner.
one downstairs. said there was one upstairs?
Yes, there's one single one upstairs in that like corridor back corner. Yeah, yeah, back there.
Unauthorized user. Access denied.
Stop!
Yeah.
Why are you stopping the
Oh.
hack? Come on.
No.
Oh no.
I had to kill it. Oh. But did we get it?
I got that. I got that one. I think I need to.
Did you still have more to get?
I got. I don't know. I still hear whirring.
Yeah, yeah, right here, right here, right here, right here, right here. Yeah, good job. You still did it. You still did it.
Five. It was counting down to 5.
Nice. Good job.
Drop
You guys
dead.
did it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now we just need to wait for excavator 6 or tunnel 6. Jesus, I keep calling it excavator 6.
Oh God.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I
there's
wasn't paying attention to them.
Shit.
a pretty good amount in here right now.
Okay, need to find some ammo.
Okay, well that double
Bring it on,
points is
Barrow suckers.
tempting.
Juice time.
Fuck.
They are swarming.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Oh, you got a crawler on you.
I'm about to bleed out, guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah, still can't get to you.
No, you're fine. I don't
Man,
want
that
you to.
reeks.
The crawlers.
Holy
do,
shit,
the
dude.
nosepads,
Do not
so
worry.
it kills
This
people.
Russian needs no
Ooh.
help.
I ran out of there.
Yep. I seen it. Oh, hello, crawler. Do you have a zombie left?
Just that crawler.
Okay, I've got 2. Okay, I was gonna say, yeah. Here, I'll
Ugh, disgusting.
kill that one.
Why don't you smell feather, hell pig? Why?
So that crawler is last. Okay. I mean, I know I want to get Jordan in, so if we want to go around, excuse me, we can. But I was just gonna maybe go look for box.
Box is
Oh,
outside.
oh, yay! It's right here. I opened the door right to it. Awesome. I chose the lucky door because I might have mistakenly bought the other one. Oh my god! I'm not grabbing that.
Come on, why not? It'll be the
Oh.
best thing to use inside.
That's my only box it, so have at it. Let me take zombie from you. Or
Ew.
not. Come here.
Always wanted 2
What the
guns
heck?
at the same time.
You got one more hit. I got zombie. The way he like floats when he like leaps like that is insane. Ooh, an AUG. Very nice.
Take it.
Booyah.
Alright, well,
Nice.
come back, Jordan!
You're back, Jordan.
I'm here.
I'm gonna run around outside, hopefully survive, so that way I can hit the box. once I have the
Save up
mines.
points, and then we can head back to Earth and get Jugger.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah! It worked! Now on to phase 12.
Oh, hello, astronaut. Resbot.
Oh, he's thrown back in.
Yep.
Uh-oh, Graham.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Not a chance in hell, Cupcake.
I've had 2 zombies outside. How fun.
Fountain of pain!
They've all
Hello.
been inside.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh!
Now you die!
You weren't paying attention to the zombie tanks, you did it.
Luckily I turned around and was able to knife it, but so it missed me.
And that was a move.
Here.
Yeah, I got jump scared by a zombie.
More! Need
I had
more!
a total of 4 zombies outside. So, that was fun.
Nice. So many points.
How can I make this split with it? I am in
Oh,
need
it's
of
only
bullet.
11.
Darn.
No more ammo.
Aw,
You can save that one if you want.
This will open their minds. Get it?
Ooh.
Open the. Forget it.
Ooh. Oh shit. What the fuck?
I just blew his arm off. Oh, I am a happy Russian. Hey, look! Big mess! Die, skunk! Hammer away, spirits! I need ammo, and fast!
Well, I have enough for
I
the
hate the
Juggernog.
clicky-click sound!
Nice.
I don't even have a decent gun.
Neither do I. I'm still rocking the M14.
Warning. Excavator Omicron will cause
Get yourself a gun, man.
Tunnel 11.
Nah,
Need
I'm
to round
focusing
up
on
some
Jug.
rounds. Great! Almost out of ammo! I hate waiting for that green
Ooh, I can almost do both.
floaty thingy!
Fourth wall break right there. I hate waiting for that green floaty thingy. Talking about ammo.
Almost there, Jordania. Almost there.
What's the next step, by the way?
The
Waiting for
excavator.
tunnel 6 to be breached.
Your face offend. Now die.
Alright.
Right now, we just heard over the comms tunnel 11 is gonna be breached. So
Oh my god. Oh, I got QEDs again.
nice. Let's not die.
There's my luck to not get a weapon and just get QEDs.
Ooh, Galil, nice.
Heck yeah, dude. I only have my pistol.
I only have my double pistols.
So are we gonna
Look at the beautiful cleaning flame.
go for Jug, or are we still hitting box? What's the plan here?
Jordan just got a Galil, so now he has a better means of getting. Never mind, he's dying.
Oh, that's a lot!
Holy shit.
Die, meat
Ooh.
puppets!
Nope, wrong button. I'm fucking up.
We were
Ah,
waiting for
thank you.
Jordan.
Excavator Omicron will
I-
cause decompression of
There's
Wow.
Nuke.
11.
There's
I know.
Nuke.
60 seconds.
I
Jump.
Nope. Nope. That's something.
You can do
did not. I did not realize the nuke or the QED was gonna get thrown like that in low grab for some reason. So when I threw it, it spawned the nuke way up
It
there.
doesn't teleport you by yourself.
Yeah, you guys have to die
What?
first.
Warning.
Oh, the thing does.
Excavator
I see.
Omicron will cause decompression of Tunnel 11 in 30 seconds.
Ripperonis.
Well, we lost out on QEDs again.
Not a chance, flesh sore. Need a few rounds if we're gonna keep the
Oh,
good
no.
times rolling.
I have no ammo.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, you're out of ammo. Okay. There's a wall gun somewhere around there.
Oh.
Nikolai, quit queefing.
Oh.
Never
Ew.
mind. Zombies!
That was a crazy voice line.
Need the juice! Eat it and love it!
You got the steak out? Hell yeah.
Ugh, I'd hate
No,
Oh.
fuck, dude. That's insane. Yep. We just gotta keep navigating it better. We'll get
Yep.
used to it.
We're trying. We got this.
Yeah. We got this. We got this.
I like how this, of all maps, is the one giving us trouble. We've, like, first tried every other map up until this point.
It's the zero grav, dude. It's always that.
Yeah.
Ready?
That's the rough part about it.
Yep.
Ready.
Damn, we're so close to going to go get Jugger too.
Yeah.
I believe in us. We got this.
Why did Richthofen bring us here?
It's Jug.
Damn. That sucks.
Dude, let's find some ammo. Good doggy.
Out of ammo.
Worth it.
Can't breathe.
PES active. Welcome to Griffin Station. Artificial gravity and life support systems are offline.
Weird. Where the hell are we? Shit, no bullets. Time to drink. Maybe that will fix it. 200 yards and one happy Dempsey.
Come to me, minions.
Oh, very nice.
Maybe you can open the
I
next
am
door.
pretty sure I love this low gravity
Are
shit.
we taking the same route as
Yeah.
the one that we just took?
Yeah.
Now you die. Death by Russian.
Next door is 750.
I will come for that. I was just killing off the round. Got one zombie left.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, it worked. Now on to phase 12.
Oh, wow. Phase 12. Dang.
Damn, I'm poor.
Me too.
I don't have a weapon.
Oh. Hi, Maestus? Does anybody know how to pronounce that?
How's it spelled?
Maestas.
Yeah, I don't know.
I agree with your pronunciation.
I'm not gonna tab out to do it, but the next time we get in the lobby or something, I guess I've got someone to
So
ban.
close. Unexpected.
We
Luckily,
I can jump so
the
high. I
auto
never
mod
want
or
to go
some
back
shit
to
caught it
regular
because it didn't
gravity.
show up in our shared chat.
nice.
So likely ban evader.
Oh, I'm 50 points off.
The flames of the damned.
Repair a window.
Literally gave me 10. Is there another window in here?
What a rush.
Oh, there was one right here.
I'm stealing your zombies.
There was one right next to the door.
Yeah, this wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for those Nova
Ooh,
crawlers.
double points.
That one was giving me the evil eye. Took care of
my gosh, I'm missing every. You son of a bitch.
Did not I say hands off, zombie?
Power's on. And so is the doctor.
Third floor for the lab is also open.
Oh,
So-
already got all the way up there. Nice.
Yep.
Well then, we will do Simone Says, and then the hacker.
Also, boxes outside again.
Sick. I'll head back to spawn then with Billy to cover him. Oh my god, I hear all of them coming out of the
Oh
walls.
goodness.
I'm gonna start getting ready to open the other path, so that way we have it open already.
Smart.
Oh, they double tapped me. That was rude.
Oh. H.
coming.
Chang.
I'm mad that he comes back so fast.
Hell, pig.
That one zombie.
I mean,
was-
realistically, we can just ignore
On the
him.
way.
What? It pushed you out of the way.
All right. Quick
Aw.
now, before they come back.
It pushed me out of the way because it knows I wanted the points.
Oh, dang, I didn't even think about that. Oh, well, alright. I'll see you guys later. Teleported me to power.
Let's rock it.
Find that very strange that the astronaut teleports you.
You can stop him from teleporting, or someone else can. Like if you're being grabbed, someone else can save you.
I just mean in general, I find that to be a weird effect of an astronaut. He has the ability to teleport you.
Thanks for the help.
I mean, it is very disorienting, so it's understandable.
Yellow.
Oh, I can no longer hear their screams.
Oh
Good
shit.
times. Yo, over here. Pay attention. Juice. Know what I mean?
I'm out of ammo.
You attack the doctor?
Damn. Billy, watch out. Billy, watch out.
I'm out. I'm out of ammo. Fuck.
Dead, hell, pig.
I ran out of ammo. Got smacked. Shit.
I think the last Simon Says off of beating it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just funny timing. Oh, that would be so nice to be able to get that. That was dumb.
Dang. Dude, this is relentless.
Yep. I tried for something
gravity
I
is
shouldn't
so
have. I should have
rough.
just gone around. I tried being risky with it when I should have just gone up into spawn.
That's okay. Jeez, I guess we're learning. We literally cannot separate until we have Jug.
I mean, we've made it before, but yeah. Because we were all there together at that point, right there. I think we just got overrun and unlucky with ammo.
Yeah.
The idle. Free $50,000 cash. Wow.
Why they call this place Paradise Ranch is beyond me. Desert sucks.
Ooh, that's my own grade.
yeah, that was cool.
40 seconds. Let's go. We're getting
We're
better at
improving.
that.
Yeah.
I've opened the first door.
I
I'm
had
always
enough to buy
buying a
weapon.
weapon.
Bars and we end up here.
I had enough to buy weapon and open next door. And I think Crims has enough to open next door as well.
Does he?
Yes, he does.
Does he have enough?
Oh, watch out for
Oh,
whip.
shit. For
Or is that
whip.
Wolp? I think that's Wolp.
Weapons getting dry. Need
Ooh,
some
double points.
lubrication. Sweet. Thank God. I can go home and tell seventh wife I now make double points. And about new girlfriend.
Oh.
Thank God I can go home and
Yeah.
tell wife about double points. And about new girlfriend. What the crap?
Good old classic ZOMS when they could say pretty much anything.
Now to perform an autopsy from a distance.
I know what I bought.
Huh?
I know what I bought. I have no regrets.
Did you buy
What'd
the
you buy?
Olympia?
I bought the Olympia.
You should have all the regrets.
I have no regrets.
Cosmonaut incoming!
Oh, wow. He's already back.
You guys already killed him?
Yeah.
Apura. Calm down, Apura.
That one was giving me the evil eye. Took care of that for him.
What did you just say?
Yeah, I got no
Apura.
rounds.
That's the thing's name. Is Apura. So I told it to calm down. Calm down, Apura. You're making a scene.
Oh, 1250. I'm not there yet. Oh, fuck.
Now to do that again.
When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
I was just shooting at a zombie's shadow. Like, I was full shooting it, too.
He was fully committed to it.
Yep, I was.
You were killing that shadow, dude. That shadow
I am.
had nothing on you.
Nothing, dude. That shadow didn't stand a freaking chance, bro.
Where's my lotto ticket? I'm on a roll. I am pretty sure I love
Alright,
this
about
whole
the next door.
gravity shit.
We've got power.
Jordan, careful, you're by yourself.
Your face
Roger.
offense. Now die.
Alright, so we still need second and third floors open. No, we need third floor
Power
open.
is on. Blah blah blah.
So we need
Is it drinking
a
time now?
1,000 points for third floor, but let's go do Simon Says. Oh, we have Tunnel 6 excavator right now. We have to succeed.
Sick.
Let's go do Simon Says, and
I
then
was gonna say,
we just
luckily
need...
we have time. It's just that's the first announcement. I think it does like 3 or 4 times.
Okay. Oh, what's wrong with? Okay, so we need to get 15. Basically, we need one person with 1,000, one person with 500.
Hey, why are my guns so light? Hint.
Because I'm gonna do Simon Says right now, and then we need somebody to open third floor,
I ain't
and
a
then
good
someone to
jumper
do the
anyway.
hacker.
Why am I jumping so slowly?
Oh, right behind you, Jesus.
Oh my gosh. almost forgot it for a second.
Come to your death.
Okay, you can go ahead and start. Simon Says.
He's been doing
That's
it.
a good way to save ammo.
Yeah, I've literally been doing
You
it.
disgust me. Leave some for the rest of us.
Oh my god, I'm surprised I got that. I was so lost there at the end. Oh, dude, I bet on my face I looked like, what? Dude, I confused the shit out of myself there at the end.
Oh shit.
Okay, let's go do this hacking, and that way we're ready for Excavator 6 right off the bat. I'm just gonna, it's Excavator 6 from now on.
Warning. Excavator Pi will cause decompression of Tunnel 6.
Excavator Pi, Tunnel 6, Billy.
Yeah. Excavator 6, Tunnel Pi, I got it.
Yeah, I'll open the top door.
I'm just here to help either hold zombie or identify because I don't even have enough to do the hacker right now. So, Jordan, that much is on you if you would be so kind. It is on the first desk right before the staircase, the second floor.
Okie dokie.
Where?
I will stay upstairs and let you know where green is up here.
Yeah, I'll stay down here.
Crawler up here.
Oh, sorry, it's over here.
Ah, thank you.
Nothing can withstand the super skills of our soldiers.
Warning. Excavator Pi will cause decompression.
I see two down here.
In 60
You said there's 2 down there?
There are 0 up here, which means there's 2 mid-level as well. So yeah, 0 up here. You got 2 on Crim's level, and then 2 on the level that you started it on.
Yeah, I got the 2 on my level.
Perfect.
I'm standing next to the 2, so.
Tell me you can.
Awesome. Good
I'll
job,
do
guys.
this one, and then this one right here.
I will be ready to press buttons.
Excavator Pi will cause decompression of Tunnel 6 in 30 seconds.
Good thing is, we need to
In
let
30
it. Bad thing
seconds.
is,
Yeah.
we need to go through the other tunnel.
Okay, I pressed the buttons. We need to go to excavator. We need to go.
Yeah,
We need to go to spawn,
let's-
right?
Yep.
Yeah, just head to spawn and try and get through there before it breaches.
Wait,
Just
we don't
that we
have to
run
go
the-
through the tunnel, do we? What do you mean?
Yes. No.
Oh, well,
no,
to get back
no,
to spawn,
we go
don't
through.
we?
We go through 11.
No, we went through 11.
Yeah, that's why we opened this way up.
Oh.
We opened 11. That way we didn't have to risk going through.
PES required.
We need a hacker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
And yep, it's this one right here.
So yeah, don't do it yet. Let it breach.
No.
And then
I thought it just did.
it said 30 seconds. Is it breaching?
Well, that was.
Oh, is that it breaching? Is that the saw right there?
It's currently
Yeah.
breaching.
Yeah.
Sick.
So do it.
Okay. Yeah, go for it. You're good.
So, I need to do it now?
Yeah. Do it. Yeah. You're good.
Unauthorized user. Access denied.
That digging thingy was going to take us part of the base. But we just
Neat. Good job.
Excavator Pi.
Yay.
Restored.
So now,
So-
shoot the orb, or I'm sorry, go to Tunnel 6 and find the Vril Sphere, melee or shoot it, and follow it until it gets stuck at the top of spawn on the satellite. So that satellite that's right there, that lone one, it'll get stuck in there.
Gotcha. Jordan, can you come by this door?
After you get a helmet.
Up.
Okay, do I not need the hacker anymore?
No.
No.
Not at this point. Not at this point. We
Yeah,
might need it
we
again
can-
later, but not right now.
We'll pick it back up over there.
Yep. Yep, that's fine.
So the Vril Sphere.
Oh, we have more doors. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
More door.
It drills in here.
Oh, you stopped it.
I know,
That's
but
what
I'm
happened
saying
to-
it drills in here, so it would be.
Oh, I found it.
Rotten egg
Yep.
on moose?
Yeah.
I thought it was made out of cheese.
Boing, boing, boing.
Dude. Jeez.
We gotta get it to spawn.
Yeah,
shit.
it bounces so much. All right.
Yeah, we just gotta block its path on where it goes.
Hey,
Oh.
this is pretty fun.
Well, we're not blocking anything. We're following it.
Yeah, we're just following it.
Yeah. It's in a set pattern right now.
Isn't it a set pattern?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not hit
You just have to keep hitting it.
A black ink
Just follow it.
It's in a complete set pattern.
Crawl it, crawl it.
Well, can't move this thing any farther, so that little door is open.
And now it's on the satellite.
About the hoops we're jumping through.
Yep, and so then for this, we need to shoot the orb with the wave gun.
Right, I was gonna say we need the wave gun, right? Okay.
Yep.
So, start the next round.
Yep.
Yeah,
We need lots of points. We need to get Jug at some point.
Yeah, head to mystery box before killing that, just so we're already over there.
Shit. Oh. Alright, yeah.
And I guess start rebuilding barriers, get as much points as you can.
True that.
Because all of us need to just start getting, like, gunning for that.
Yep.
Wave gun.
QEDs, and Gershes. We need
Yep.
all three of them. And we also need to save up for Jug, just to be safe, so...
Was it Jug when we started? Is that what you guys saw?
So, yeah.
Shit. So if you want, we can just head back to Earth. It's just so we can cycle it.
I mean, it would give us more points
true.
too.
Yeah.
Oh shit,
But
it's
we
not
just
open
have to
yet.
open the door.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
These aren't open. Shit.
And it's this door, right? Yeah.
It's the box isn't there, but yes, it would be this door to get out to the teleporter.
Alright.
If you want, we can focus on opening up this one because the box might be inside of there.
I wonder if Hacker can open the door.
It costs
Hacker
money.
can.
Everything costs money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how much. Oh, it only costs 200.
Oh,
Nice.
shit.
But it takes so long.
Well then you should try and, or maybe drop the hacker and I'll open this other door too. That way we just
This is
have...
what I'm gonna do after I finish this hack.
Well, you're not gonna have enough, I thought.
Yeah, no, I meant like I'm gonna
Oh, shit.
drop
Oh,
the
Watch
drop
out,
it, drop
crawler.
it. Gotcha. Yep, thank you.
Oh, no,
No, don't, no. No! Alright, we
Holy
blocked
shit.
it, we blocked it. Holy,
Oof.
dude, he was on you.
I was like, I can't
Holy-
stop.
Hey, you got it.
Nice.
Okay.
Good shit.
Alright, yep, drop hacker. I will go do the next one. Where is the hacker? I know see the hacker.
Hacker's on the 3rd floor with us.
Ah, dang, okay, I must have missed it. I'm coming back up.
It's next to Deadshot.
Oh, so it is. Look at that.
Alright, well, keep that zombie away. Oh, this costs 1,000. Oh, no, the hacker. I'm stupid. I was like, what? This still costs 1,000. Wow, it really does take a while.
Oh yeah, no, you have no idea, man.
Well, I have a pretty good idea now.
You're gonna be sitting there for a minute.
Yep. Halfway through right now.
Hey, Crawler, come here. Come here, Crawler. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. Come teleport to me. Yeah, come on.
I believe in you. Look at you. Look at you hack
I'm
away.
almost done. I'm hacking. I'm hacking into the mainframe. I'm almost there. I can feel it. I think I'm about to do it. I did it.
Shit, you fucking did it, you legend.
Whoa.
I'm in a
I almost
really
got
bad
launched.
movie. I mean,
Okay, so now we go.
So look,
to
you see how the pad isn't glowing? That's how you know it's okay to
Ah,
walk
yes.
on it. Those 6
Lame.
nodes.
Lame.
Do we want to head to Earth?
Yeah, sure. I just want to see
yeah.
if box is out here, which it
Box
does
is
not.
not
It
here.
is.
It
Yeah,
is, yeah. It's in the
It's
dome.
out here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's right there.
I couldn't see the light.
Yeah. Starting locations are usually either at power, dome, or outside by mule kick.
Yeah.
Don't
Seems to be
shoot
that
the
way.
zombie.
I just shot him once.
I
Wanted him
just
to know his
want-
place.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey, you forgot
Oh.
to grab the. You forgot to grab.
that's okay.
We would have teleported. We would have gone to Earth. It would have been fine. He would have gotten it when we got
okay.
back.
I also got slapped by the crawler as I went in there to grab the helmet too.
Nice. Boop. Yay, look at us.
Okay, get as much points as you can, guys.
Speed Cola.
Speed E. coli?
Is there any other speed?
Well, I would hope not E. coli.
I guess if we can't help it, we should probably stick as close to the,
Eat it and love it.
I was gonna say, I don't have the greatest weapon.
Oh,
Get on,
God.
get on, get on, get on.
In peace. I mean pieces.
I got triple tapped all at once. That was
Holy
rude.
shit. That was scary.
Yeah, I didn't get very many kills that time, but that's okay.
But that's reset. So next time it's gonna be.
Zom died.
Oh. Alright. Well, we need to just go spam box. So one of you has enough to hit it.
In a shooter, don't you
Nope.
think?
Oh, not anymore. What? You should have just hit box.
I need ammo. I want to survive.
It's only round 4.
You're funny.
Did we die on round 4?
We've died
think
on
it was round
round 7?
I think 5 was our earliest.
I feel like either way, him
Wait.
getting ammo is still a good idea.
I thought... Did round not flip? I saw it glow.
Yeah, I saw it. Oh, it's because we came back from Earth. It just does that
Oh.
coming back from Earth.
Neat.
So
Good to
we
know.
still, yeah, we only have the one zombie still who I am killing right now.
Sick. Alright, I'm coming up there. I'm coming with you.
Watch out for
I'm
the back.
here. What?
It's not active.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're
Don't
Yes,
trick.
it is.
Don't trick. It's not.
Yeah,
It's literally
yes,
not.
it is.
No, it's not.
What, brother? What are you talking
See,
about?
look.
It's not.
Ta-da.
It is literally glowing.
It's not glowing, though. You're such a liar.
Okay, so. What the crap? It's literally glowing for me.
I was like, dude, you're gaslighting the shit out of us right now.
Yeah, this one bypack. This one is
Yeah, the
glowing.
game glowing is gaslighting the shit out of me.
Oh, and look at that, max ammo.
Me.
I am replenished.
Graham, I still think you made the right choice. Don't listen to him.
All right.
Oh no! I was getting slapped. I got scared.
I think they won.
Not a chance.
Let's see if my luck persists and I get the
Oh,
QEDs again.
Gonzalez.
Oh no, I got the Python.
Does anybody know a spaceman named O Gonzalez?
Hey,
Don't we all?
you have no head.
We're looking at him. What do you mean?
I don't want to know him. Go away.
The one time I don't get the QED is the one time we make it the furthest. Max ammo and a nuke right on top of each other. Nice.
Everyone's favorite.
Alright, let's all get a couple hits in.
Never placed my Olympia with his pass.
Nice.
Oh, it's 106 again.
Wow, what are the odds? That's crazy.
It's just toying with this at this point.
Right?
Whoa, that was cool.
Oh my gosh! Oh! Oh, an RPK.
Be
Heck yeah.
careful.
Oh, this gun
Oh no,
makes
this is
my
F and foul.
Yeah,
It's
I was
stupid.
gonna say that's not the RPK.
No, it's not. It looked similar. But it's okay. It's still better than my F14, so it's just I upgraded either way.
How does it know where to go when
I'm
it
glad
has
you
no
upgraded.
head? God, my brain hurts. Seeing their heads explode is so
Oh, I launched.
beautiful.
Oops. That's just sent me flying in the most random direction.
I'm about to go on a killing spree.
Cover me.
I will. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I am 10 points off.
It's
That's the
matchmaking
HK.
time.
Nice.
Oh, I needed 10 points. Dude.
And the HS-10. Oh my god! Wow.
Come on, something good. Oh, that's
Fuck.
great. So good. Yeah.
Just beat him with the bear, dude. Beat him with the bear.
If I could grab it, I would.
Hopefully it's just outside, but better luck, it's going all the way to power.
Yep.
Alright. Yeah. I think that it's already done. Yeah, it's gonna do it again. Oh, it is at power.
Yeah, power.
Jumpy jump!
Jeez. Can't hit my shots with this python right now, dude.
Ah, this'll work. Back to hell!
So, what am I missing here? Is there a way to power through this outside right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jump on the pad. Like the teleport pad, and there's a little gap in
There's a
on the
slot.
side.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
You're not
Dude, I can't hit my shots with this python. Jesus.
Fire sale.
Go for it, Jordan.
Very
Go for
nice.
it.
Oh, I'm dead.
Never mind.
No, I just got collapsed by zombies.
Yes, I was tired of only having one gun.
Gracias, my friend.
Oh, good. I'm done
Oh shit. Fuck. Ugh.
An SMG. I don't need to aim anymore.
Don't try and revive me. Just survive.
I am the victor.
Coming down.
Alright.
Oh, never mind. He's got
Thank you.
Perfect. Don't worry, I have you covered.
Oh, you got a ray gun.
Hey,
Nice.
ray gun.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, it worked.
I'm gonna get rid of the shotgun.
Oh, I saw it. Damn. It was right before that AUG.
I know it said no.
What a rush!
Here, keep trying. Keep trying.
That's a freaking rocket. That's a bazooka, brother.
Boom!
Free couple hundred points, Carpenter.
Okay, how big? High five! Oh, you can!
Well, when Tower 6 is done drilling itself to death, we can go through it.
Can't we just go through 11?
No, I'm saying I opened the other.
Ah, I see. Oh, I just go. No freaking way.
Did you get it?
What?
I have wave gun and ray gun.
Let's
Nice.
go. Alright, do you want to head over there now then?
Sure.
So that way you can shoot that. Oh, fuck.
I'm just not sure. Oh, I don't have Jug. That's what. I need Jug and PhD now. Yeah, I'm just not sure how well this combo is gonna do, I guess.
Just be as careful as you can. I don't know if you can see it from this side.
Hate your death!
Shit.
Yeah, I think it's right there on the tip of the antenna. Nice.
I shot it. Yay. I shot it. Where does it go from here?
Checking.
Oh, I found it. Right here.
I think the egg is
It goes
stuck
into
here.
tunnel 11.
Let's have a drink.
Oh, yeah.
Egg is stuck here. Let's have a drink.
You have to keep hitting it and it goes into the
I got Ghost
MPD.
Device.
Nice.
Nice.
Complete the battery.
That's all we need is a QED. Heck yeah, we're doing great, you guys.
Good shit. Okay,
It
gets
is
launched
just
in right there.
really- Wait, I don't see it. Where?
You just gotta shoot in the crevice. It gets lodged back there. Oh yeah, you can see
Oh,
it.
I see.
Yeah, there you go, there you go, there you go.
Yep. But yeah, the one time I don't get QED, again, the one time we make it the furthest.
Stand, hell pig, stand!
Bro.
No harm, Buttercup.
Holy fuck, we need to get out of here. Spaceman, no! Oh,
The
that's actually kind of nice.
on their corpses
He's dead.
So beautiful.
All right, I don't know where the ball went though. I got too scared being in there that I just ran.
Uh-oh, yeah.
That's alright. If it didn't come out with you, it might be stuck on the door and you just have to walk into the door.
Electricity makes them dance well.
You dare touch me, minion?
You'd think this would get old after a while, but it's great to be awesome.
Nein, Dempsey, he was mine! Vengeance!
I smell something cooking.
Oh gosh.
Blackjack, freak sacks, you lose.
All right. Let's
Try and leave a zombie if you can.
I am looking for ball and I do not see it. Oh, I see it. Found it.
Do not hit it too hard. A black egg does not smell so good.
I'm bringing it through the doors. It's coming down to power.
Without the bullets, I must start stabbing. Ah!
I see it.
Stabbing!
Yep, and it's floating into the
Oh, it
MP
just
right now.
okay. Cool. I thought there was one
What
more.
that does.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice, good job. Watch out behind you.
Now it's the, now we charge this, right?
Yep, it's a soul collector. I think 25
soul
going to the
box
first
time?
one. Yep. 25 going to the first one, and then 100. It'll 4 will show up, and it'll be 25 for each.
Oof. Okay. It's gonna be a little rough without like PhD and Jug for me.
Well, we
I mean,
are.
you can go get
I see.
PhD.
Isn't it 2K?
I thought PhD was 15.
Well, I guess we're about to find out. Where's
PhD's in the biodome.
Yeah, it's right next to the box where we were
Right.
spinning it.
That's right.
Um,
It's just
I
gonna.
am circling the zombie.
do you want to get PhD, or do you want to save some points and go get Jug
I was
next round?
gonna say it. Yeah, it might be better for me to save points for Jug, and I
So
can
we
just try
all
and-
can go sooner.
But let me still look at.
Oh.
Oh gosh.
You good?
I'm right behind you. Don't worry. If you fall, we'll pick you up.
Okay. Oh, it's sending me over here. I'm good. I'm good. And I'm alive.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah,
What a miracle.
PhD is 2K.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll just
Let me see. He gets 25 kills near it. Flip the switch next to it once it's filled. At this point,
We don't-
everyone gets a 90-second death machine after you fill that. Groom Lake, throw a grenade. Oh, right. Ooh, should we wait to do that? Should we fill the soul box first, flip the switch, then we need the Gersh device at Groom Lake to get the panels anyways.
right. Okay.
So we can yeah, we
Yep.
can do that in the same time that we get Jug. So I vote saving points, and then just when we're
Yep.
ready to get Jug, do that.
Yeah. That's
All
fine.
right.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you know where the
well
panels
then-
are, Jordan?
No.
Okay.
I'll need someone to point it out for me.
Well, when we spawn, if you're on the teleporter looking out at Pack-a-Punch, it's to the right, off the railing near the cabinetry, and you'll see panels leaning up against it, and you just throw a Gersh over there. Very similar to Ascension. You're throwing the Gersh out of the map.
Got it.
I'm gonna stay over in the dome just to kill 2 zombies that start the next round, so I can buy PhD, and then I'll come over because we're gonna be killing a lot of zombies over there anyways.
I'm gonna go ahead and kill this zombie.
Where do we want to stake out at?
Someone needs to be by the souls, so the more of us over here, the more zombies gonna be here.
Okay, it's just with all of us there, might get real crazy
It's
without
gonna be a
Jug.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I'm trying to
So-
get PhD so I can just shoot at my feet and hopefully.
I mean,
survive.
maybe two of us in the power room, or one of us in the above area, like where boxes up like outside.
Oh, Mule Kick?
That way-
Yeah, I'm already here. I can try and do that.
Yeah. That way, if one of us goes down, we'll have a backup plan.
Okay.
We can try it. Hi, my love. How are you?
All right, starting it.
Hello, Lexi.
I'm scared.
Is that not close enough?
I just chilling a little bit ago. I'm good. Oh, nice. What'd you guys do? What'd you end up doing? Oh, no.
Tunnel 11.
That sucks a lot, actually.
Okay, just means tunnel 6 is gonna be free.
Yeah, but we should probably fix that.
Tunnel 6 is still grinding away. I think that means both will be grinding away if we don't do anything about it.
Oh, I thought it only ever did one at a time. Okay.
Nope.
Interesting.
It effectively blocks the path. That's why we want to avoid that.
The machine is powered by life force. How silly.
I just thought,
should've
like,
remembered that.
it was only a 1. But you've got to be shitting me.
Okay, I'm coming.
Graham, I'm good down here if you want to go get him.
Yeah. I mean, that's gonna be the hard part.
Yeah. That's
so unfortunate. Oh, this door's not even open. Fuck.
It's okay. We did what we needed with the wave gun.
Can you cover me, Billy?
No, I can't. I maybe a little bit.
Oh, you're right there.
I killed one.
Come on.
Okay, I killed those
yes!
two. Oh my god.
Oh, I got triple tapped.
Okay, we gotta get Jordan.
They caught me in the middle of a reload.
Oh, you're good, dude. You're good.
Oh, it went the wrong way.
Oh shit. Risking it for the biscuit. Oh. Come on. You're still orange. Oh, I'm coming down, BB. I'm coming down.
Hey, what's good? Oh my gosh.
My god, you're the best, and I'm right here.
Oh, thank you. You saved my life. That was so close. Holy shit.
Jesus Christ.
Bro, what? Okay, this ray gun is just not... Brother.
Do you think you can cover me? I'm gonna try and get him.
It is filling up.
Oh my gosh, I got slapped in the back.
Holy shit, dude, that was close.
Bro, this ray gun is...
Ray gun early games is so tough to use. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Say, it's either doing the Lord's work or it's literally missing entirely somehow.
Yeah. The only way to use that is to aim at the feet.
Instead of killing this last zombie,
That's
let's
what I
go.
was trying to do.
Let's go ahead and get Jug.
Yeah. Let's go get Jug and then you can use Gersh and get those panels.
Okay.
Fuck, we need to be quick.
I do like that idea, so I'll get Jug, but I'll wait on PhD then.
50 seconds, it does tunnel 11.
Yep, so we gotta go do that, come back, get the hacker, and go stop 11. Otherwise, we're gonna have
We won't
2
be able
tunnels.
to get the hacker without...
We're gonna have to do it now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if 11 is down by the time we get back, we won't be able to get the hacker.
Need the juice.
Go for it. Where is the hacker? How many seconds?
40.
I've got it. It was up top.
Okay.
I'm on my way down.
You have to run
you
all
could
the
have
way to
gone.
spawn, that's the issue.
Oh,
I was gonna say you could have gone to the teleporter.
In a shooter, don't you think?
oh yeah. Okay, yeah. No, then I have a hacker. Yeah, let's just go teleporter. That's a good call. I didn't even think about that.
You'll be out of breath for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just need to make sure you guys are on it.
Jordan, get over here.
Gonna need to start
I'm
swinging
literally
here.
right here.
Oh,
It's
don't
okay.
overshoot.
I waited.
Okay.
I waited. I want to make sure you guys were already there.
Okay,
Nice.
Jordan, I'll try and direct you, bud.
Oh, well.
So yeah,
okay, no,
you
I'm
see
gonna get
those
here.
over there?
Jordan, no, over here.
Yo, yeah, sir, over here, Jordan, over here. I'm shooting at them. There you go. Good job. I'll just throw a Gersh over there. Oh, I need you to hurry.
I can't fucking remember what the button was.
If you're on PC, it's probably 4. I'm reloading.
It's not worth dying. If you can't get it, just jump on the pad.
Was it 4?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Are they getting sucked in? Can you see?
Did
No,
I get it?
It didn't work. It didn't work. Did it work?
There's panels. There's panels right there. If you have another. Oh well. Do you have any more?
I got one more.
Okay.
Okay.
Throw it right there. At those panels on the ground. Those hexagonal shaped panels.
I'm reloading.
Got him.
Yes, he got him. He got him. Get on the. Get on
Okay, good
the.
job, good job. Yeah. Go, go, go.
Oh, good job, dude. Good shit.
Good job. Alright, and now I've got enough points. I can hack both of
I was
these.
running out of ammo. I was just trying to help.
I am out of ammo.
I am.
Okay, right here. Here. The whoever has the hacker.
Yeah, I'm doing this one over here too. I'm doing both.
Oh yeah.
I received a gift from Crims. What?
Oh yeah, you did. It's already 10 o'clock. I was hoping that we'd have the Easter egg done by now, but yeah, I scheduled a gift.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that. I was like, hold on, we're
Yeah.
playing. What do you mean you gave me a gift?
yeah, after that. How the fuck
Right?
did he do that and then gift me at the same time?
Alright,
Yeah, when you look at it.
I am officially out of ammo.
Yeah, I'm
can't
about to be.
I'm
Just get out of
drawing a
here.
hacker.
Yeah, just get out of here.
I'm going
Spread
to
out.
Dome. I'm going to Dome so I can finally get PhD. I have neglected PhD this whole time.
Die, meat puppet.
Oh my god, that was so fucking scary.
We did it though. That was great.
Brilliant job, lads. Brilliant job.
Space dudes in tunnel 11.
Too bad I'm in tunnel 6 with the death machine.
Oh gosh. Oh, I almost did something very dumb.
Oh fuck. Oh, we still need to fill this up.
You gotta be shitting me.
Grim, come
Please
over
tell
here.
me I
Come over
don't
here.
go
Come over
down.
here.
Please tell
Grim,
me I
come
don't
over
go
here.
down.
Sorry.
Oh my god, I survived. Thank god.
Can we get a max ammo?
Holy shit, yeah, a max ammo would be beautiful right now. Oh my god, dude, I'm stressing so hard this game. Holy crap.
I have absolutely no ammo.
I am quite low as well. I still have a bit of ray gun, but I'm trying to save it.
I'm trying to train with you, Jordan.
I was gonna say,
You're doing the
try and hit
Lord's
box
work.
if you can.
Oh, is it over here?
Yeah, but I don't know how many hits it has on it, so it might just.
Hit that switch. You already filled it. When you have a moment. Come on, give me something. Give me something. Sure, that's something, I guess.
That's something, alright. I'm not sure how strong this ray gun and wave gun combo is.
Okay. That one's done.
Excellent. Marvelous. Beautiful. Look for a button or a switch.
Good job. Ooh,
Nice.
Samantha.
Hello, Samantha.
And we get death machines. Kill the astronaut.
We did
There
the grand
she
scheme.
is.
But so now there's more, right?
There is more. We're not done.
We're not done.
Okay, you got the. Oh shit! I'm getting hit. Fuck. I was trying to look at steps, but that was the worst time to do that.
Carpenter.
Look at the steps. I got you covered.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know how long we're gonna have these for.
We have death machines still, so.
No, it's fine. I'd rather just get down to one last zombie and then I'll look at steps.
Smells like like I just
It's
kicked
Gucci, bro. It's Gucci.
Alright, I think we're low. I think we're low. Be careful in killing. I see 1. I see 2.
ass. Face your death.
Okay. Okay, there's a code over
Okay,
there.
there's one right there.
I think I got one.
Yeah, don't.
I just blew his arm off.
Just don't kill that
Oh,
one.
I am a happy
Oh, they're still
Russian.
coming. I
Oh.
think they're still coming.
Oh,
Still
okay.
coming.
Okay.
Zombie, I sure got your arm. Fear
Ooh,
me.
a fire sale.
Oh, fire sale.
If only we could use it.
No way. Grabbing the fire sale is a bad
Yeah.
idea.
Run to box, but
I mean, it's all,
Oh well, death machine's about to run out.
It's alright. It's alright.
yeah, it's also not a huge.
Probably hit it like once or twice or something.
There we go.
No time to argue. I need ammo.
I'm at the MPD. No zombies.
I ain't a good jumper anyway.
My luck did
Why am I
not
jumping so
persist
slow?
for QEDs.
Oh, out of
Okay,
ammo.
we got
Bailey,
the one
you and I
zombie.
have
Maybe if
one
I just
zombie.
walk
Yeah.
around like a zombie, they will ignore
Do you
me.
wanna hold on to it? Oh no, just look at the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
step.
I got you.
Okay, I went back to Groom Lake, throw a grenade at the shelf outside of the map. Oh, well, you shut up. Whatchamacallit, we got those panels.
Yeah.
You need QEDs for the next step. We don't have those yet,
Okay.
right?
No, we do not.
Okay, we're gonna have to do... So back to the moon, throw a QED at the tiles near quick revive. Okay, so the tiles we brought back should be at quick revive.
Ammunition.
Okay, so if they spawn, yeah.
So I'm just gonna go and verify that they're there.
Flash kept away from them.
Because I know that I saw them floating into the Gersh, but I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
they came back with us.
Ballistic knives. I was gonna say, Jordan, if you already have Gershes, I don't think you should spin the box anymore because those come in.
Oh, I had
those
no
come in
ammo.
really-
I had no ammo on anything, so I needed guns.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay. Come on, nope, not the effing foul.
That's what I have.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
You see
QED
them
at the tiles. Yeah, they're to the left of quick revive.
Nice.
Grab the S-shaped hose in or near the lab and place it
Teddy
on the
bear.
grill device at the computer in the spawn. Okay.
Let's head back to spawn.
Yeah! It worked! Now on to phase 12.
S-shaped hose.
We're
I
doing
wonder
good
if I can
though.
grab that now.
We are. I thought that was what using the QED revealed. Or is that not?
It might. The QED just moves the panels into position, and so I didn't know.
Okay.
The hose might be underneath them. You might be right. I just wanted to see. Because the next step says grab the S-shaped hose in or near the lab. So I figured RNG
Gotcha.
might put it somewhere.
Boxes in spawn.
Gotcha.
Nice. Good job, Box.
I am on my way.
Revive this, you animal!
Only getting lost in the tunnels, no big deal.
Where are you going?
I'm almost at spawn, I'm good.
Need to round up some rounds.
I don't want a gosh damn sniper rifle.
Snipper riffle.
What the flip?
So where are these, oh, there they are. There's the plates. Nice.
Yeah, they get teleported over here.
Wunderbar from here.
They get put into these slots.
Ah.
And there's an S-shaped hose that you'll then put into this right here.
Okay, so yeah, actually, now that you mention it, yeah, I think that hose should be retrievable already.
I think so. Yeah, that's why I was just trying to look for it.
I think it's just a really weird thing and like hard to spot unless you know what you're looking for type deal.
Yeah.
Drag it out. Can you read the location again of where you said it might spawn?
Oh. You have zombie. Don't die.
Yep.
It just says in or near the labs, not here, the labs. It'll be up there. Near I guess stamina, is that right?
I think so.
And place
Where
it
we
at
did
the
the
real
hacking
device at the computer and spawn. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm already outside, so I'll just run over there really quick and see if I can find it.
Okay. I'm gonna keep it in box, see if I can get these QEDs.
Yeah.
I got 2 more hits.
When I get back, I'll try and keep.
Jordan, if you don't already have it, you should get a PhD because you have the ray gun now.
I do not. I have quick revive and double tap.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, do you have a 4th slot still? Can you get PhD?
I was gonna save it for speed.
Ah, fair. All right.
So then you better not die then.
Yeah. I also don't even like double tap 1.0 enough to get it. I feel like. But I'm out of points.
I'm here now. I'm looking for the hose.
Are we gonna need the Gurge again at some point?
I don't.
I mean, it just comes in extremely handy in a pinch. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, but
I would prefer to have them.
No,
for future reference,
if we aren't gonna need it again, I'll just roll to see if I can get QED.
No,
since I'm out of
okay.
anyway.
Yeah, but max ammo, you'll get them.
Yeah,
that's fine. When I come back, I'll run and see if I can get them.
And yeah, for filling up the soul boxes at the MPD, Gershes will be very nice. Once we get a max ammo, of course, but you know.
Oh, are you looking for the hose too?
Yeah.
The hacking device is on the 3rd floor next to Deadshot.
Okay.
Just in case we need it again. Labs. S-shaped hose.
Yeah, I think I remember the very little that I have watched of this map. I'm pretty sure it really is such a small, like.
It's small and it's a dark color.
Yeah. Like you move too quickly over it and you're gonna miss seeing it entirely.
I don't know if it's on the ground or like on top of something. Like
right.
on a desk or like on a box or something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the floor.
Well, I'm sure it has multiple spawns.
Maybe unless he's looking it up.
Okay. No ammo.
Maybe on the ground against the wall or inside any desk where the hacker may spawn.
Okay.
Okay. I'll look at the desks now then.
Yep.
Well, since everyone's here, it doesn't make sense for me to stay. I'm gonna go.
Ow.
Yeah, I got no rounds.
And hit the box.
Hey, why are my guns so light? Hint. Need the juice.
Found the hacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't show up until we do the QED step.
It is a possibility, but yeah, I'm not totally certain. So
I'm spinning for it. Never mind.
well, you were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I ever read your message. Just chatted and split off into our own games. We'll silently chill and chose maybe back once on walk with friends and me. Oh yeah, I saw that you messaged me. That you got those Dragon Ball Z ones. Those look really cool. Where did box go?
Outside. It's
like
outside.
Meal Kick?
Yeah. I'm standing right in front of it.
Sick. Excavator did a number on 11 or 6 rather.
I'll keep looking for the wire while you keep spinning, but I am thinking it might be the case of needing to do the QEDs first, I guess, but I'm just not totally certain.
Yeah. If you want, you can look up to see if there's images of specific spawn locations for it.
Okay.
Did you already check 3rd floor?
I'm on third floor.
I looked up there a little bit, but only
I'm
about
currently
as
circling.
in depth as I could. Okay.
I'm currently circling third floor.
Gonna need to start swinging here.
Since
or
you are
find some
training,
ammo.
since you're training that zombie, I'll take the time to see if I can find images of this wire location or hose.
What are your thoughts on the game so far? What game? This game? Doc? I love this game. Me and Billy and Jordan were back on our marathon, where we picked up back where we left off after playing the new maps for Black Ops 7.
Cold steel. Let's get this done.
No.
Hey DK, I'm toasted.
Oh, I hate
What
this.
happened?
I accidentally bought Deadshot.
Oh, why'd you do that?
Trying to hold F around the
Hey, why are
third
my
floor.
guns
See
so
if I can.
light? Hint.
Oh, you'll see it,
see if I
brother.
can find anything.
You don't have to do stuff like that.
How's it going out there?
I appreciate you. I appreciate you going the extra mile and wasting your money for us.
Wait, what's happening?
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
Jordan,
I'm
we're
about to
sitting
make a
there
name
trying to
for myself
randomly
here. You just
hold
make sure people
interact,
know what happened here
trying to
today.
get the hose and Bob
Oh shit!
Deadshot.
Oh
bleed.
no! Oof! I'm sorry, dude.
Alright.
Okay, so
How's it going out there, Cram?
Last hit.
right there.
I got Gershes.
What's this doing?
Oh,
Wow.
damn it.
Yeah, alright. We gotta just flip around and get points.
Oh, okay. I guess we're doing that now.
Oh shit.
I
Did
was
it just
gonna look
die?
at a couple. No, I heard gunshots.
No, no, I definitely shot it. Sorry.
I was
I heard flip round.
Just be sure you
Pulling up.
ask. You never know who's ready and who's not, dude.
Yep, I was just pulling up the hose locations, so I was gonna look at a couple of them.
I'm in Dome.
I'm
I'll try
gonna.
and train in
Oh,
Dome.
the other ones in. Dang, I was gonna say I'm gonna fill up the MPD, but the other ones aren't up yet. That's right.
Yeah.
Grim has your. I'm going to try and
barely even
spin
had to
box.
I am too powerful for such games.
Max ammo would be very nice because I am almost.
Did not I say hands off, zombie?
There's no way. I'm at MPD.
I'm coming down here.
I'm coming. So I can throw
I got a new.
Gersh.
I think I got him. I think I get him. I think I got him.
Need more.
Yeah, I got him. I got quick revive.
Nice.
all
That's
right,
right
all right.
here. This will
You
help
help
because I need
me,
to
now I help
get my
you.
perks back now.
Rinse, repeat.
Wow, very nice.
The timing.
Ooh. It was flickering.
Thank God.
The nuke caused it.
Oh, the electricity dancing on their
Oh,
corpses
thank God.
is so beautiful. Like
Fuck it.
singing
I'm
boys.
trying box.
Dance, hell pigs, dance!
Got a what is it? Draconovich?
Where's my
Dragon.
Dragunov.
I'm on a roll. Woo! Get back, gutter slug!
Get out of here.
What? Okay, that's right. Still at MPD.
Come down.
That's
I got a
fine.
The
Gersh.
Stumpy found dead.
I got a crawler right now.
Thank you, Crims.
Nikolai is back, good as new, ready to kill zombies and look good doing it. Hey,
This is my downfall.
Your time will come to an end, little girl.
You're
Boxes
good, dude.
moved.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Alright,
Well,
how many
we
zombies do we have
gotta-
left? I have none on me right now.
I got a crawler. And boxes and power.
Hold on to the crawler. Let's go to Groom Lake just so we could get Speed Cola out and then come back.
Agreed.
So we can rack up points and take Billy back to go get Joe.
Yep.
That's another thing I hate is the fact that they put Jug over there.
Yeah.
They should have put Speed Cola and fucking Deadshot.
Dude, honestly.
Are we all here? Are we ready?
Not yet. I am still... Just while we're here, I have the... Oh, the hose is right here. Wow, we walked past... Okay, here's the
Oh, did you find
unfortunate
it?
part. Yeah, we've all walked past it so many times and not realized it.
Hang on, don't pick
pick
it up.
yet.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Don't pull a Jordan and just.
Is it in the third
act.
floor? Or?
Yeah, I'll wait for Crims. I want Crims to be here and see this.
Careful, because astronauts there too.
No, I killed it.
Oh, nice.
Alright, are you ready for this?
Oh my god!
That's so good, dude. Well, I think you can go and install that. Oh shit.
That's just so dumb. So dumb. Like, how many times did all of us walk by it and not realize it at all?
I was thinking that it was like black wire. So,
right.
do we want to?
I can jump so high.
I never want
to go back to regular gravity.
I mean, install it, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
sorry.
I got the thing we needed.
QEDs?
The what?
Oh,
You got QEDs?
then?
Yep.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, just head to, I want to go see this happen.
Right now.
Yep.
I'll wait for you, Grim.
I'm coming as fast as I can.
Whoa.
Dude, hell yeah. GG's on that box spin. What are the chances, my guy? They do.
Hey man, hey.
Hello. Oh, thanks, dude. I like yours too.
Yeah.
I am here.
What about these? What about these? What about these? What about this?
LG mountain.
Oh, yeah, brother.
So I just throw it at the panels?
Yeah, I think maybe
right
from
at
like
the panel.
from here, just so that way in case it can bounce off of the barrels.
Yep.
Yeah, just throw it at it.
Yep.
Cool. Nice. Oh.
Oh,
Why?
that's not good. The ray
Why?
gun blasted the windows. The QED spawned the ray gun and it just blasted all the windows.
Oh, I see.
To do this next step, right?
And there's the hose.
Yeah, there's the hose. Let me
Who's
see.
Richtofen?
I think it's you.
Richtofen will now need
No,
to interact
it's
with the
you.
computer.
It's Crims. It's Crims, I
I'm
believe.
Dempsey.
Are you?
No, who am I?
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
Richtofen.
yeah, you're Richtofen. Yeah.
God damn it. Alright. So what do I do?
You just interact with it for a few minutes until you pick up the Vril device.
I'm just gonna keep pressing F.
Just hold it.
Wait, is that really what?
Place the viral device? I'm dumb.
This is
Oh.
all going according to plan.
Nice.
Nice.
I'm dumb.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, do that, then interact with it, I guess.
He's a liar.
Oh yeah, you need to interact with it for a few minutes until you can pick that back up.
Yeah.
Now that it's placed, now you have to interact with it until you can pick it back up.
Then get 25 kills next to all 4 tubes at the MPD, total of 100.
Yep. And then once we've done that, we place the Vril device on the MPD. Well, Richtofen has to. And then we play Samantha Says again.
Crawler.
Oh shit, thank you.
Wow, yep. We play Samantha Says again, and then we need one more QED.
I heard it say a prompt. Are you ready to pick it up
Yeah,
yet or not?
I did hear that as well. Try go and pick up the Vril device again.
Oh.
I actually still hear clicking on the computer, so maybe not.
Yeah, never mind. Yeah.
Do you actually have like a progress bar, or are you just holding?
What's this branches?
Ah, nice, it's green. Alright, try and pick it up now.
Oh, nice.
Oh, fuck you, Maxis.
Oh.
Panic Coaxialis.
That's funny. He
You got
kicked you back
duped.
out and you gotta do it again. Dang, that's funny.
You got called a fool.
Yeah, I hate not having Jug at this point in the game.
We'll prioritize going back to get it for you because we're gonna need it for MPD stuff.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm recording this because all these commentaries are so funny.
But I mean, even for the MPD, we'll at least have Gershes and the QEDs.
Mm-hmm. True.
That's gonna help a lot. And we have 2 ray guns. Oh yeah.
I love hearing the dialogue. I don't think I've ever heard this.
Yeah.
Of Maxis actively fighting with Richtofen over this, what, like his decision.
Right.
This is where COD Zombies changed forever.
Yeah. No, really.
Oh, I guess I can get quick revive. That'll help. That's green. Oh, you can pick it up. Nice. Damn, that was a while.
Yeah, it did say a few minutes.
It sure did.
Yep. Alright, cool.
I think you just place it in the MPD now? Is that right?
Yeah,
We need
gotta go back
to
to
fill it up. We need to fill it up first.
Oh, fill it up and then place it. I see.
Place it. Yeah. Yeah, it's not placeable until we fill up all 4 tubes. What that does, I think, is just open up the tubes, or raises them, essentially.
Well, let's go see if that's the case.
It sure is not. So...
I think it needs to be placed. Yeah, I think it needs to place it first.
Well, no, see, it doesn't get placed. Interacting raised.
Yeah.
So we needed to interact
Good
first,
call.
but all it did was
so Groom Lake, switch out speed,
to
come back.
cycle speed, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm just floating
Dude,
into the ceiling.
On top of each other is insane right there.
Guys, we're so close. We just need to fill those tubes successfully and not die.
You know what we need to do? We need to pull out the strat that we had on Verrucht.
What's that? Oh, I see. I like that.
We lasted so long with that strat without
So just pick a corner?
Maybe.
Is that what you're saying? And then panic is throw a Gersh?
It might be a bad idea, but maybe.
Okay, speed. Get a couple kills, I guess. Over here.
Yep.
I'll just stay on the teleporter. If it unlocks, hello? We just need to step off of it?
Yeah, it takes a second. It doesn't unlock it.
Oh, I see.
I'm reloading.
I can't be stopped. The leg. Now, rest of
Reloading.
Damn. If only we had enough for Pack-a-Punch, it's right there.
I mean, we get a ton of points here.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to try and get
It's
Pack-a-Punch. Well, I have a Gersh. I'm okay with doing that for Pack-a-Punch.
I mean, I need to save for perks, so it's up to Jordan, I guess, if he wants to Pack-a-Punch something.
I mean...
Oh!
No.
Wow.
Yeah. Throw a Gersh with a cancer. Like it.
I was just
Get
gonna
on.
call teleporter.
Get on. That a guy. Cool.
Well,
I guess just
I've
kill
got
last zombie at
Yep, I've got
MPD.
enough for Jug at least, so that's a good.
Or hang on, are we able to use the teleporter? More
I
than
was
once
saying, are we
around?
able to just go right back?
Let's
Like, I
try
don't
because
know
I'm
how that works.
unsure. I know in newer maps we have to wait till round flip
Yeah.
for shit like that.
If we
It
can
might
go right
be round
back.
flip. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, we can find out. But yeah, because as I say, if we can just go right back, then that's perfect for a couple things. I can get Jug, and then I can save up a few extra points to also buy PhD as soon as we come back.
Sure. I also have a film reel. I have no idea what to do with it.
Ah.
Do we look it up?
Crawler up here. Careful.
I turned into that crawler. Gross.
Oh, nope. Gate's up.
Okay.
So
Let me jump over it. I want to jump over the gate.
I ain't a good jumper anyway. Why am I
go
jumping so
to
slowly?
this. No, we can't go this side either. To do the drop down.
Yeah, nope. We can't.
We gotta go through the biodome.
But if we end round, will it open up right at the beginning of round?
Or we can find out.
Let's just kill it, because then if we can't, we're gonna just.
Really hurt, zombie. I think I may bruise.
Let's see.
It would be really nice if it did exactly that.
Yes, it would.
It might not be a round flip. It might be a timer.
Might be time based. Yeah,
Maybe.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, she ain't
time-based.
budging.
Cool.
Okay,
Alright.
two. I was gonna say the dome.
Fire sale.
Have a seat. Freak
Oh shit. Ooh. Careful going through the biodome.
Nikolai leaps across
Ooh,
the
Billy,
moon.
careful.
Yep. Actually, you know what? Considering that, I'm actually gonna go over to the biodome if I can make it. Hopefully, I don't die because my ray gun doesn't even feel like it's one-shotting anymore.
You attack the Joker?
This should help you.
Not a chance.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, thank you.
I take your sword.
Shit, I wish we could get down to the MPD and just start filling souls.
Oh, that'd be so nice.
That's where
Yeah.
I'm heading right now.
Okay. Yeah,
Long
insta
way.
kills are extremely helpful for. So.
Good times.
Damn. It's already
Hey,
running
Grim.
out.
I want
Sorry.
to come here.
Taste death, hellpigs.
Those tubes in the back are gonna be hell.
Yeah, they are.
I guess let's
I
do the
don't-
ones in the back first, though.
I don't know what the range is like on them. You know? Like, I don't know if you need to be, like, right next to it kind of thing, or...
You need to be like right by the damn things.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was for the first one that was activated.
Okay.
Reloading.
Oh, the gate's still up. I can't even drop down to you guys.
Yeah, we went through the lab.
Yeah, I just expected by now it'd be open. I was wrong.
You will never succeed in this.
Oh. Hello.
Ooh, I need a max ammo.
Yeah, same.
Shit. I got 12 shots. 12 shots in a dream.
It might be. Is it open yet?
What?
The,
Oh, the gate?
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah, I think it is. I think the yeah
God.
lowered.
Oh my god, I just lost PhD.
Honestly, let's just go and grab him, Jug.
Let's do that now. Yeah, good idea.
Yep. That way, also we can pack a punch while we're here. Crawler.
Yep.
Oh, true. Pack a punch.
I
Smart.
just did that.
It's alright, dude. We're almost there. Pretty soon, it's not gonna matter.
Oh, hey, look, another crawler.
Oh, nice.
Jordan, you want to pack a punch first, so we're not fighting for it?
Yeah, I'm gonna pack a punch ray gun and then cover.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy Jug, and then just rack up some points, I guess, with the little bit of ray gun ammo I have left.
Damn thing is a big fat stupid dull hunk of meat. Damn thing.
Richtofen's song.
Dempsey socks.
Oh fuck, that was almost really bad.
I got you covered. A little bit.
I smell something cooking. Dance, hellpigs, dance. No dice, gutter sluts.
Well, I'm glad at least one of us has an upgraded ray gun right now. because mine is gonna start feeling pretty weak, especially when I run out of ammo with it.
Dempsey has made a crawler. It's so dumb.
Hey, look! Big man!
Never again will you hurt the doctor's feelings.
Oh, I'm out. I'm reloading. Oh gosh. I'm getting on the.
I don't want to use all my bullets on this. I'd rather use it for the MPD.
Yeah.
Just get on, dude.
Father would be proud.
I was trying to see if I could just get just enough to.
I'm out of
look
ray gun
at the.
I'm
You're
out of
good,
ray gun
man.
ammo.
Click sound.
So.
I am pretty sure I love this low.
And I have 6 shots left in the wave gun, so I have literally 0 ammo right now.
Should.
The uprisers are so wunderbar from here.
Oh,
Around
and
just turned. Shit.
No,
No,
it
it
glowed.
The juice.
It just glowed. That's what I was asking Bailey earlier, and that's what we saw.
Yep. Oh my gosh, that zombie jump scared me. Holy crap. There are a couple zombies in map now, though. Brother.
Kill all zombies that you see.
Wait, why? What happened?
Death machine spawned.
Oh, nice. I see no zombies.
Damn it. No, Jordan, why did you get it?
I was trying to avoid it.
Man. I don't know where the zombies are at. I'm gonna go try and find it.
Even if I did see it, I wouldn't have the ammo to kill
Found
it
it.
anyways.
Nice.
I found it. Running back. No,
Damn.
it's going away.
Yeah. It's alright.
I am gonna need to be protected. Or I hit the box and trade out one of these weapons.
I would just
Oh,
come to
this
us
is
for
bad. Yeah, I was trying to. I didn't realize the
Yeah, the
teleporter
thing
cage was
still-
up. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm running through labs. Hopefully I don't die.
Get over there, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright, I'm here. Carpenter, 3 points. I can kind of cover this side with the wave gun. Oh,
Oh,
that's not good.
Gosh.
That's quite bad.
there's. Oh, it hurts. Good.
Yep,
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
Reloading.
Oh gosh, I'm stuck. I was fully stuck on you in the MPD or something.
Your tears will taste so sweet when you beg for your miserable life.
Got 49 bullets left.
I've got 7 with the wave gun. I'm trying to use them sparingly because I can take out a whole line of them with a single shot.
I'm about to be out. I'm gonna have to leave.
Alright, I took these guys out.
Shit.
Reloading.
Fuck. I'm out of there.
Okay, no worries. Let me... Okay, no, you got that. You're good.
Oh, Lord, I will destroy it. Okay, I got it. Help! I need more ammo!
Okay, this wave gun's been doing me really well for the few shots that I've had with it. But
Good night,
I only
love.
have...
Hope you have good sleep. Sorry.
Oh,
this
please.
is
I don't know
an
if we
interrupter.
need. I don't know if we need the wave gun on for another part of the quest.
No, this is it. So yeah, do whatever you need.
Oh, this is the last part.
This is yeah. Well, Simon
Pretty
says
much,
after
yeah.
this, but this is the main like brunt of it.
Yep. Yeah, I know I don't need it anymore. It's just I don't want to trade out the wonder weapon if I can help it.
Yeah.
So
Nice, one's filled. Good job.
I got 68 left.
I have literally 2 bullets.
I have 3.
That missed. Well, I'm out completely now.
Same.
Alright, I guess I'm hitting the box. And I'm gonna see what I get, decide which weapon to trade out. Oh, why'd we end?
Not know that was the last zombie.
Got the spaz.
I'm down to go pack a punch again. If we hurry.
I won't be able to cover, like, I'll literally just be sitting in the back.
It's okay. As long as we just go straight to the teleporter.
The Russian can dream, can't he?
I got cornered by crawlers.
Now is not the time to dilly-dally.
I don't have any Gershes. Fuck.
You can grab me. You can grab me. I have 36 rounds in this.
Okay, yeah. Oh, no.
Oh,
okay. Wow.
Nice.
Looks like I am about
Oh, that was lucky. Ooh, we might check. I was gonna say we might have a max ammo. Maybe.
Not even checking right now.
Fair. Let's go with what we know.
That is, though, yeah.
Oh, hey, zombie. Oh, shit. Oh, it's hitting me. Oh, my God.
Go, quick. I can't do anything.
Good one.
I can throw grenades.
Oh. Now the dead.
I didn't know we were doing 2 packs. I thought.
Oh, zombies! I'm about to bring it old
Oh,
school.
just get on.
It's not. Oh, it is open. Okay.
Jordan, baby. Back up. Back it up. Back it up. Jordan, back it up. We're trying to use the ammo for the MPD, not for those guys.
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep us covered.
Well, all you had to do was back up.
Yeah, you could have kept shooting, but you just weren't moving.
Yeah.
I was backing up.
Yeah, but by the time you got to the teleporter, you had to reload and they were slapping us. That's the issue. Oh, right. We're coming back on a new round. I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, that's right.
Still completely out of ammo. Most of these are almost full, though.
Yep, we're almost there.
It looks like we need front, left, and back right the most. Oh my god!
Oh!
Did we just get double max ammo?
Yes.
Oh, did we?
We just got a double max ammo. That's so funny.
That's rude.
No die. Gun in blood.
Dude, this is beautiful. If you can cover me, Jordan, I got you. Good job, good job. Very good, very good.
My side's good.
Are these all filled? These all look
I
filled.
think they might be. Yeah, Jordan, try
This
interacting
one.
with the front. Try placing the.
Oh, I think this one needs souls still.
Yeah, I think it does.
I got bamboozled.
Oh, I'm reloading. It's fine. Yeah, that's my bad.
Oh shit, oh shit. That's pain, that's pain. No! Fuck.
I'm stuck on the zombie, otherwise I could have gotten one of you guys already. Cover. Oh, it moved him. Okay, we're good. The clutch, the clutch, the clutch.
I think this one's filled.
Let's get down. I mean, I know it's round 15 or 16. I know it's going to be difficult, but I want to make sure we stop on one zombie here if we're able to.
God.
Cover me.
Yep.
The ray gun is not good right now, even if it's
alright, it's alright.
My no pack a punch ray gun is doing fine.
I put it in.
You did.
Sick.
You did. Good job.
Nice.
Oh my god. This vision is not
Oh,
helping.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Oh. Just hold on to a zombie. Try not to kill everything.
Okay, careful. Yeah, we're down to the last couple. We're down.
Okay.
Don't kill. Stop killing.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I killed this.
Ooh.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
yeah.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, head to
so what's
spawn. It should just be Simon Says. Rick Toffin just switched with Samantha.
Sick. Alright. One more round of Simon Says.
It means that Rick Toffin has entered the device. If you free me, I will help you minimize the damage that he will inevitably cause.
Dude, that max ammo came in so clutch right
Dude,
there.
both of them? The back-to-back max ammo?
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, it's already...
Look up, wait, should we look up what the,
What?
Should we
Spit
look
it
up
out?
what the
Someone
what you're
make sure they
holding?
take zombie.
What?
What you're holding in your inventory?
Oh, the reel?
Yeah.
This isn't gonna end the game, so if you want to take...
No, I'm
Here,
saying
I'll hold the
should we look
zombie. Yeah, I'll hold the zombie. You look it up, and Billy does the Simon Says. Although... The QD... Do we still have QEDs?
I do.
Okay, thank God. We need that still. Play Samantha Says
did it.
again. We'll
It's
throw a
done.
QED in front of the MPD until the real sphere gets sent to Samantha Says.
Okay.
So one person stays here, one person throws a QED in front of the MPD.
So Jordan's got to go to MPD.
Space Nikolai,
Do you want to? I would say, do you want to take him down there? I can maybe hold zombie over here, or and just see if he's thrown it at the right spot or something. I don't know. Make sure we're doing this right.
Look, I am Spaceman Cosmonaut.
Wait, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm trying to...
Wait, does Samantha Says need to be played multiple times? Because the thing's still going.
Did you do it the one time?
Yeah.
It just says play Samantha Says again. If you did it.
Oh, okay. So the reel is a little side thing. It's not like a
No, I knew that.
quest thing.
I already knew that. I
No,
already knew it's a side thing, but I just didn't know what to...
I didn't know what it. I didn't know what it does.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
just you place it somewhere and you listen to something. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah,
but I knew it
just a
wasn't part of
little
that.
radio.
Yeah, we're like 2 steps
radio
away
in it.
from finishing this.
Yeah. So what are we doing now?
Go back to the MPD, the pyramid where Samantha's at, and you're gonna throw the QED in the same spot that you put the real device, that key in. So you're just gonna throw it right in front. How many do you have?
I hope 3 because we got a max ammo recently.
I have 2.
Okay. Good enough.
Throw a QD at the front of the MPD until the real sphere gets sent to Samantha Says
Hey,
computers.
Krim, you want a ray gun?
Oh. I mean, sure, I guess. Let me just... I think only you can grab it.
I have a
I
pack punch
can't.
ray gun.
But I can't grab it. I can't do anything with it.
I'm gonna make
Oh,
them
I got
sweet
it.
ass
I just had to
messes.
touch it.
I am honestly thinking we might need to play Samantha Says more than once here for some reason. But I...
The Krim needs to throw the Gurge device.
What?
I need to throw the Gersh.
Yeah.
Why?
Throw the
Why?
Gurge device near the pyramid.
Why?
Or...
It says QED.
No, wait, not take your Gurge device. Let me have the on the wiki, it says the Gurge.
I do
Throw
see
Gersh
the
device.
ball. I do
Is the
see
ball there?
Yeah, the ball's here.
Okay, alright, let me just head over there then. Because the Gersh isn't at the MPD, the Gersh is at the computers.
Okay, then yeah, it looks like it's ready for Gersh computers. I'll take
AC,
off
I will
the-
drink water momentarily. We're just about to finish this Easter egg, and dude, you're totally fine. You have a lot of names on that wall. I would have gotten lost with so many people beforehand.
Oh no, zombie, come back. Come this way.
Yeah, I don't want the zombie to get caught by
Yeah,
the Gersh.
I got him.
Also, our final stand should totally be at that pack punch.
Oh, got it, Groom Lake.
Don't go too far, Billy, because I think after this, it's Earth
I'm trying to watch from
explosion.
the window.
Okay. Alright, I'm gonna throw it. Y'all ready?
Oh my god, I just got double tapped by the zombie. Good. Didn't realize he was already up on me so quickly.
Go, Egg, go!
Went inside.
And so now what? Do we just interact with the computer or something?
There's 3 sets of Simon Says.
I just threw the Gersh. It sucked up the orb. It just says that all players get all perks. It says that's it.
No, you gotta do Simon Says.
Oh, I guess do it again then. And then
What was that? Red, blue, or
pull zombie, pull zombie, pull zombie, pull zombie.
No, it was red, blue, green. Okay.
Red, green.
Nope, I got it.
He's got it. He's got it. He's got it. He's got it. He's done it twice already. He's fine.
Come here, zombie. We're trying to chill. Relax. 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 Relax, zombie. Juke. 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 Tag, you're it.
Oh no! I don't want to be it. Get away from me!
Now you get to juke him.
Oh no, I'll probably go down.
Oh, my mouse spazzed or something. That was dumb.
You're good, dude. You got
That was,
time.
that was on the last one.
You got time, man. You got time.
Okay, but my mouse is actually doing something really weird. Blue, blue, green, red, yellow, blue. Cool, that one's done. Yeah, see, I knew if the computers were still going, we had to do it more. So.
Gotcha.
But I guess I'm glad the steps can be done in any order.
That is good. What did it say? Was there anything?
Blue.
He's
Oh, it's
has
still
to
going.
complete it 3 times.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
Oh, hey, look, the rocker is now out of the chamber.
Oh.
Or like
So
one of them
nice.
is.
Yeah.
I ain't a
I
good
think there's
jumper anyway.
3.
Why am I jumping so slowly?
Yeah, the more he does it, the more rockets.
Oh, right, yeah. The more that the rockets prime.
Yeah, so he's already done 2.
Oh my god. Okay. Looked at the blue computer and somehow hit yellow.
That happens.
Yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. It's the same pattern though, so I'm lucky.
Oh, that's good. That's convenient.
Yellow, blue, green. Yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue, green, red. Yellow, blue, red. Yellow, blue, green, red. Wow, I almost second guessed myself there. Yellow, blue, green, red, red. Yellow, blue, red. Yellow, blue, green, red, red. Yay, done.
Sick.
And
oh, yeah, you can see the last rocket. Yep.
We're doing
it. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's happening.
2, 1.
Blow him up, blow him up.
Careful, zombies running over here.
Oh wait,
Let's go.
I just
What up,
realized.
Gage? You got here just in time.
I just realized what it's about to blow up.
Yo, yeah.
We're gonna die. I see my house. I'm gonna die.
Oh my god.
They sure take a while.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time.
30 seconds to impact.
Hello, Ashley.
30 seconds?
Wow. Dang. They really do take some time. I've been silent.
Hi,
here.
Ashley.
Okay.
My god, it's happening.
It's happening. We did it, boys.
Oh shit, boop the mic, my bad.
Mood.
Oh.
Oh, I don't see the rockets anymore.
Wait for it.
Is it just
All perks, let's go!
Let's go! Dude, hell yeah.
That's insane.
So sick.
That's it? Seriously? All that work and all we did was blow up the Earth?
What?
What the
Dempsey, what?
It's like, what the fuck?
Goodbye, Daddy. I love you and I miss you.
Oh, wow.
But I want my body back. And I'll destroy that evil Richtofen for taking Daddy away.
Oh my gosh.
Poor Samantha.
Never
So
heard.
who wants to go back to go back
And
to
so
what's it
begins
called?
transit. And so begins transit.
I never want to go back to regular gravity.
God, how many tries did it take before we actually got to it?
I think 4.
4, and then we
Yeah.
had a successful run.
Yep.
Dude, it's so good. You can see the debris still flying off of Earth.
That's so good, dude. I'm gonna blow it up some more. These ray gun shots will make it there eventually, right?
Yeah. Sick.
Right.
Well, we don't have exfil. Do we just play until death?
Yep.
I know exactly where I want to go.
I would like to try and pack-a-punch at some point. It'll be the first time pack-a-punching for me, but
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm down to...
Perfect place to hang out at.
Perfect. Oh, is that where our last stand is gonna be?
Is there
Yeah.
3 nukes destroyed the Earth? I don't think so necessarily.
Yeah.
Wait,
There was.
I think
There
it's
was.
just-
Oh.
they should let us
Oh,
go
a
back,
reason.
right?
I see. My bad.
Oh yeah,
we
that's
can't.
right. Groom Lake is gonna be different. Groom Lake is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be different now.
We can't go back until round flop.
Okay.
Oh, so it's not a timer.
Well, no, maybe for this. Maybe for this specifically, it flips around because we just blew up the Earth. But previously, I'm almost certain it was a timer.
Well, we did all that in one round.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's fair. But I mean, we literally experienced flipping rounds and it didn't do anything before, so that's all.
No, what I'm
So
thinking
that means
is like
it's
we
like
can only
middle
go
of the
once a
round after you
but
flip
it's-
it.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, let's find out.
Let's do it.
Zombie.
I don't know. Following us still?
Do we leave Jimmy behind?
Do you happen to have any Gershes left?
No.
No, shit. Okay.
Oh, I hear him. I hear him.
I don't even have enough
He's
to
dead.
pack a punch yet.
It's okay. He'll have enough standing out here.
Yeah. Very true.
Oh,
Very true.
dude. Having all of these perks is so nice.
Yes, it is. Is this the first ever perkaholic Easter? Oh no, it's not. It's
You know
not,
what I
is
just
it?
realized? We also have meal kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can go get a third gun now.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's right. Now we have Samantha voice line.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Oh yeah, and all the eyes are blue now.
Oh shit.
Oh, that's right. They are.
All right.
Catch.
Well,
I told
gate's
you you're
still
gonna
not
die
open yet.
today.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit.
Nikolai enjoys the slaughter. Almost as much as my second wife.
Huh. Nikolai really liked his second wife.
Oh, hi Zoe.
Hi, Zoe.
Bye Zoe. All three of us just turned on it.
Oh wait, do we all have ray guns now?
Yeah.
Because I got
Oh,
him a
shit.
free one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it came out of the MPD.
Oh, nice.
Oh, low on ammo. Think, Nikolai, think. Okay, I got it. Help!
Oh.
I need more ammo!
I have 1 bullet left in my ray gun. My ray gun's out.
Oh,
Time for the wave gun.
electricity dancing on their corpses.
Where
It's
is
so beautiful.
Box?
Like second wife.
God, it's still up. Ooh, here we go.
Yeah.
I ain't a good jumper
Nice.
anyway. Why am I jumping so
I think
Go
Fox is still
down.
at power. No, it's not. Fox is not at power. I don't know. I don't see the light.
I actually do think Box is that power.
Really? I just okay. I don't see the light though. Oh wait, yes I do. It's
The
right
light
there.
is faint.
I wasn't
Yeah,
looking,
yeah.
I wasn't looking far enough left. I was looking too straight on. Oh, gate's down. We can go to Groom Lake now.
Where's Jordan?
Right now, just grabbing a gun.
Stay off of me!
Stay off of me. Oh gosh.
But I can't aim for shit.
I bought a Galil. Let's go.
Nice.
Are we ready to go?
Let's go. I'm gonna pack a punch my ray gun. Or do I pack a punch the wave gun? Wave gun or ray gun?
Wave gun.
Wave gun.
Oh,
Oh, look
right,
at
boys.
everything.
Take your helmet off and breathe it in.
Ah, dude, that's crazy.
Okay, let's change it. I now have quarters.
GG's,
and
boys. Oh, I'm down.
Oh god!
It's I'll try to cover.
Your QEDs can do a lot. Try and throw a QED at him. It might revive him. I'm not even kidding. Throw a QED at him.
Man, no.
I don't have any.
You don't? Okay. Bug it. Oh.
I got you covered!
I'm not
Go,
letting you
go,
down
go,
that
go.
easy.
I keep my perks. Just get on.
Yeah,
Just
I
get
was
on.
gonna say, I wasn't sure
Just
if
get
they were
on.
first or not. They are.
Go, final stand, let's go!
Are we
He just
final
pack a
stand
punched
already?
it. He just pack a punched it. What are you doing? How dare you do this to him like this?
We got this!
Damn, you're kind of right. We do got this.
Yeah. If we can cover enough, when I get another 1,000 points, I can attack punch my ring as well. What are you doing, Jordan?
Going to go back to
But also, yeah, these are first ones. So even if we go down, as long as we can get the res off, we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, out of ammo.
Already? Damn.
Yep, they do not have a lot of ammo, and I've kind of been firing a little bit. But I've got the ultimate fire, so we're good. Put my helmet on, and then take the ultimate fire out. Bro, the ultimate fire does so much.
Oh my god. They puff up so
I love
much.
hearing the little microwave.
Yeah.
Bro, this ultimate fire is actually goated. Can we cover for a second? I can go back to my ring and now I'm doing it.
I got no shots in my ray gun.
I got no stuff in my
And I missed the pack punch anyway. It's all good. Okay, I missed it again.
I don't know how well I can cover.
Great. It's all good, it's all good. Oh, I need to go. Okay. We're good. I got it.
Sick.
Let's go.
Alright, now I can do it because we're basically out of ammo.
Yep.
Because yeah, the only problem with this strat is you don't get the max ammo.
Yeah, I'm out of ammo, so I guess this is it.
Alright, let's go. Let's go. Get out of here. Oh,
Last stand with knives.
Last stand with knives, dude. Oh gosh, put my helmet on. Forgot.
I mean, being back here doesn't make it any better.
No, it does not.
Oh, we can get drops. I still have a little bit of ray gun ammo. We can get drops.
Alright, I'm sticking with you then.
Oh, we haven't turned the song on.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
try and do.
the last. Oh no, the last bear should be here.
Yep. No,
Oh.
that's not the last one.
I am Spaceman Cosmonaut.
I'm gonna go check. I think it might be an 11 then.
I'm officially out of ammo.
No more bullets! No more playtime!
It was that one?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep,
Where's
I
the
got
third
it.
one at?
Check it out.
One's an 11. One's between the MPD and labs. It's inside of the where you get the suit.
Okay. Did Dempsey just say thanks, Treyarch?
Did he?
Yeah. He said
I'm
that you
pretty
did
sure.
by something. Thanks, Treyarch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I just heard Dempsey say thanks, Treyarch.
Fuck yeah. Pussies. You come here and do it then, Gage.
My god.
I am pretty sure I love this.
Oh no, it's not here. Which one is it? It's in one of them.
What?
Oh, the bear. Maybe it's 6?
I only have a knife now!
Oh, yep, there it is. I found it.
Where's it at?
Inside the cage, it's 6. Yeah, the in between for 6. In the cage.
Dude, GG's, boys. Well done. Thank you
yeah.
so much for doing this with me.
Is there any other side Easter eggs we can do?
Just the film reel. If we can figure out where to put that shit.
Where do
I know
we
where it
place
is.
it?
It's in the lab.
What's in the
Back to
lab?
labs, I was just there.
Lab, second floor.
Okay.
I'm standing right next to it.
Oh, and then there's the radio boxes too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Wait for me.
So you said where in the lab?
Lab, second floor. Right here.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll wait for the song to finish because I don't think we'll be able to hear it.
Yep.
Yeah, I got no round.
God, look at you. How poor you are.
Huh. Yeah, I know. GG's, boys.
GG's.
This one was fun. It's the one
It
that
was
caused
rough,
us the
dude.
most trouble.
Yeah. Knives only on Earth now.
94 points.
Honestly, I'm down with just blowing up the windows in all of these tunnels.
Well, if you blow up the windows in the staircase from the second floor to the third floor of lab, you can buy the Bowie knife.
Oh.
Ooh.
But please don't, because I have the hacker on me right now.
Oh, why do you have the hacker?
Because I'm trying to do something with it. Trying to do something.
Oh,
stupid
do you
with it.
guys? Do you want to listen to the?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, where do you buy the Bowie knife?
Gonna need to start swinging here, or find some ammo.
Log 1075. Dr. Schuster and I have spent countless hours with the pyramid device in an attempt to understand how it
My
functions.
shin!
Shut up,
I
Dempsey.
don't think the audio changes no matter how far away you get, so you don't need to stand right next to it. I
It does. If you can't leave the lab.
Did you see that? Look, the capacitor is illuminated. The tank is filling. The machine. It seems to be activated. What did you do? I think we just discovered what powers this machine.
Nice.
So that was just hints as to how to power the machine, because I was
Yep.
talking about the tubes.
Yep.
There's
That
the-
was
there's
neat.
the Bowie knife.
Where?
Right there.
Oh, how did
Oh.
I get there?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Oh, you have to break in order to
You
get
have to
low
break the
grab.
window.
Gotcha.
Yup.
Well, Jordan, good luck.
I got no rounds.
Huh, your helmet's off right now, Crims.
I know. I'm well aware.
Okay. What, are you gonna die? Oh no, you're
No, I'm just putting it on.
Oh, you turd.
Oh, what? Oh, I don't have enough. I was like, what? I saw the prompt.
Is this gun upside down for you too?
It's because I hacked it.
Oh, I see.
I just need 30 more points.
Oh, what the fuck? Why? That's so weird.
I am going to kill the zombie and see what it does.
Here I go. I guess I'm going on this adventure again.
No ammo.
Fucking bastard.
Wee. Oh shit. I missed the pad.
Oh damn. Luckily PhD, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, not the biodome. Hey hacker boy, go fix that.
Need to round up some rounds.
Need to round up some rounds. Nice. I don't even have a third weapon yet.
Oh yeah, I forgot I could do that.
That's okay. I think we just land. We last stand somewhere.
Oh shit.
Maybe at last stand. Once we get a max ammo. I think we play until we get a max ammo, and then we last stand.
Fucking round 25.
Right. Yeah, unless some shit like that happens. Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Hey,
I'm down.
why are my guns so light?
Shit.
Baron Nikolai commands you to die.
Not the biodome.
Oh, the excavator's coming in the biodome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good. And I can't put the death machine away.
Surrounded.
I have to wait it out.
No,
but I'm here. It's almost
Oh,
over.
I'm gonna die. I was trying to come back in.
Alright, now get out of biodome.
Like the society that just decided that Jack Frost was a delightful little twink instead of an insane sinister sprite that bites human toes and fingers. Oh
Why'd you try running right next to me like that?
Wee.
Close your mouths when it explodes.
I was on a mission to get inside.
I'd help, but I have no ammo.
When they crawl along the ground like
I got no either.
Oh,
It's
nice.
okay. I'm clutching, don't worry. It's okay.
Oh man, it's okay. You and I clutched. Jordan needs a time to clutch now.
Oh, hell no, I'm good.
That'll teach you to touch the red menace.
I've just been unloading my ray gun my pack punch ray gun, dude.
So who has a hacker?
Oh, wait.
Anybody?
Oh, I need to leave here. I do not. No. Why? What are we trying to hack?
Save the biodome.
No, you pushed me into the horde.
Oh, save the biodome.
You pushed me straight into the horde.
Look at all the zombies.
I didn't do shit.
No, I was talking to Billy.
I wasn't even near you.
You ran through the door and it pushed me in through the horde.
Oh. I was like, what? I was nowhere near you.
Oh.
Okay.
Good news, I found the hacker. Bad news is it's really far from where you need to take it.
You can't breathe.
Well, I think we're low on zombies, so have fun with that.
I think if I beeline it. Oh no, because there's no way. There's no way. There's no way to get it there. The paths are also excavated.
Oh shit.
There's no way to do it.
Do we have to take it through Groom Lake?
Well, let's see.
Probably, actually.
30 seconds isn't enough time.
That's gonna be our only option, is taking it through Groom Lake.
No more bullets! No more playtime!
Alright, leave that crawler. Oh gosh, there's so many, never mind.
I don't have enough money.
I just need a max ammo.
Yeah, I'm getting dangerously low on ammo as well.
I've had no ammo this whole time.
Start swinging here, or find some ammo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't be stopped.
At least we have promo perks.
Yeah, perma perks are very nice.
Rest in peace. I mean pieces.
I guess goodbye biodome.
Guns so light. Hit.
Nah, we got it. We can take it through Groove Lake at some point.
Nobody has the hacker, and we're all just standing out here.
Where is it?
It's
Y'all
in the
go get it.
lab.
Just go straight over to the teleporter. I'm coming out right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not there. Hold on. Sorry.
Breath. Quit
I'm
talking.
choking on air. I'm getting slapped.
Well,
I'm the first one on the teleporter. This is unfortunate because there's a
I said
lot
I
of
wasn't there. I told you guys I wasn't there.
What are you talking about, Chris? I'm right
I'm
next
dying. I'm down.
what?
That sucks.
What?
Oh, I'm back up. I'm running in circles. I'm suffocating still.
Like.
Oh, there he is.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna die because I can't defend myself.
I'm gonna die because I can't defend myself.
Well, please raise up. Please raise up. Raise.
Yeah. Ooh, you get a trophy for pack punching, having 3 pack punch weapons.
Neat. Okay, I'm jumping back on.
I grabbed the HS10s.
Lungs.
Okay, I can't breathe in here either.
Out.
Oh, I just took my helmet off on accident. How are you, Kelly?
Can't breathe.
I was almost there. Thank you.
I think we only have like 1 or 2 zombies left, so careful if we don't want to end round. Alright, I'm out of here. See you all tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Gage. Thanks for hanging out, dude. Have a good night, brother. Sleep well.
Bye, Gage. Thanks so much for popping on in, dude.
Congrats on the moon.
The moon.
I've been better. I feel that, Kelly. I'm sorry. I hope the rest of your night gets better.
Damn, where's mystery ball? Here it is.
Trying to do something to distract my thoughts. Literally same, Kelly. I fully understand.
Let's rip some flesh open.
I am
Oh,
right
because
there
I'm
with
hitting
you,
it. You want to hit it now? I see how it is.
I only have it. Yo, I'm fucking
Go ahead. Go ahead, Crims. Go ahead.
Go ahead, bud.
What if I just stole it right there? If I managed to steal it right there.
Hey, that's still pretty good.
Oh, hello, zombies. Wow. Oh, fire sale.
Oh, fire sale. Get it, get it, get it, get it, get it.
I did not know I was going to end the round with those.
Oh, the
last two.
song is so different.
I like the sound of this.
Ew. What song is that?
There's no way I make it to any box. Oh my gosh, stop launching me. Oh my gosh, I got a hit. Yay.
Oh, we failed excavator, by the way. The time that it took us to get back from Groom Lake, the dome got penetrated, so we pulled it back, but we failed it still.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about stopping the dome from being excavated. I was just thinking of needing to take it through Groom Lake to fix it. Okay, I see what you're saying then. You were taking time.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what you were getting at earlier.
Everywhere we go, we need helmets now.
Yep, that is rough. Well, luckily I haven't taken my helmet off the whole game, so I'm okay.
I need you to go grab the hacker for us.
That'll teach you to touch the
I don't think I will. Thank you.
The only place that would have been safe, regardless of anything we did, would have been spawn, but I threw a grenade in there to fuck with Jordan, so.
Actually, that wasn't what broke it.
Oh, that was a ray gun. Yeah, the QED. That's right. Oh shit. Good times.
Yeah, a max
Great
ammo
oldies.
would be very nice. I have 3 Pac-Man punched weapons and 15 shots with all 3.
Oh no!
Oh, Well, that's awkward.
Man,
Where
that
are you?
reeks.
I'm at power.
Okay. Oh, the gate's up. I can't drop to you.
I'm on a roll.
Oh, sorry, Jordan.
No!
Oh, dude.
Everyone's favorite.
Oh,
Damn.
gate's down. Yep, gate's down. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Oh, what is this bullshit?
Oh my god, let me draw. Holy crap.
That's funny, dude.
Dude, that's crazy. Right as we find the max ammo, and also right after the max ammo, the gate drops.
Unfortunate, dude. Crazy. Crazy how that timing works, man.
Dude, for real.
Sorry,
So
sweetheart.
bullshit,
We're all
man.
out of bubble gum.
Also, I just realized these
told you you're gonna
shotguns
die
that I
today.
grabbed do not have a lot of ammo, even pack-a-punched.
Why did you have to hit me? I called timeout.
Was it the HS-10?
Yeah, Typhoid Mary. Yep. I almost cornered myself right there, but I got out of it. We're good.
Don't do that then. Crazy.
I didn't mean to.
Why did you hit me? I called timeout.
J. Delgado.
Disgusting. Why don't you smell
Huh?
better?
Oh,
Big
I was like,
Ray?
who?
I hope that was not your yakking off arm.
You're yakking off arm.
I did.
Are you still at power?
I'm in the lab.
Ooh. Oof.
Wee.
That's rough.
I want to try and get him.
Smells like Earthwife's cooking. I loved it.
Let me know if you need
I
help.
think my hit was better.
Nah, we're
than
good.
Pig.
Oh,
What's up, dude?
cool.
I'll save your soul for later.
That really hurt, zombie. I think I may bruise. That'll teach you to touch the Red Menace.
The Red Menace.
The Hell Pigs rain down on us. It is pretty disgusting, really.
Oh, where's the hacker?
Never gets old.
Why?
Booyah!
Because I can hack this insta-kill.
What? Oh, what does it give?
You are too
I don't know, that's why I'm
easy
looking for it.
Nikolai to kill.
Oh, well.
Oh, the hacker's up here. I'm coming down with it.
Explosives are always fun.
It's on the first floor lab.
Get to air.
So, Kelly, are we distracting enough for you?
Oh, I left. Damn it.
Damn. It sucks.
This'll help.
Hopefully, we're too distracted enough for you.
Does it go back to where it was? I guess find where it's at
It goes
now.
back to one of the spots. I don't know exactly which one.
Hmm. It's not. Oh, it's by Deadshot.
You're good, Kelly. I just asked if we were distracting enough for you.
Daddy says don't play with sharp things.
Oh, we can try and activate these radios.
Oh yeah, that's what this is hanging here.
No fair.
I always thought it was just a brick.
To kill with.
Ah. Oh, did that not work? How did that not work? Wow, that one did. You asshole. No, I'm kidding. Good job.
I have no ammo.
Yes, I just need to feel like I'm hanging with someone. Hell yeah. Well, you're hanging out with us now. So,
Aww. We're happy to have you, Kelly.
yes.
Dr. Schuster.
Kelly's an old friend from my Walmart days.
Oh, hell yeah.
The target platform is now at 3 feet with no obstructions. We have 1 microgram of
How can we hear this?
Dude, yeah, sound is so muffled in these helmets. I'm surprised I can hear anything. Unless it's feeding directly into like our suit's radio.
Oh.
Oh gosh, my neck.
No fair. I don't have anything to kill with.
No fair. I don't have anything to kill with.
The prototype, and have moved a walnut directly from the prototype device into the receiving device. It moved instantly.
I kind of want to hit the box. Where's the box?
Well, Looks
Ow.
like I am about to
Okay, I should have just gone the other way, dropped out.
Nice. There's another radio in 6. If you want to listen to that one too.
Oh!
Oh, never mind. I take it all back.
Well, I guess I'm hitting box once and coming back up there.
What's up, Samantha?
What's generally the best training place on this map? Oh, well, teddy bear. Great. I mean, we could just... Well, no, we need another max ammo.
Training would be Dome.
Oh, true. Yeah. Makes sense.
Or outside by Yo Kick.
Yeah, kind of where I've been.
MPD, kind of. It gets really risky, though, if you're going behind it.
Yeah.
Oh, box is at Dome.
Oh, nice.
If you wanted to be a little dweeb.
Why did you have to hit me? I called timeout. Rest in peace. I mean, pieces.
Yeah, don't tell the zombies to rest in peace.
Puke.
Eat shit and puke.
Nice.
Alright, Dempsey.
It's my favorite pastime.
Oh.
Give Edward my regards.
Boom, boom,
Ooh.
Hey, Hellpig, high five. Oh, you can.
Whee.
Great. Keep him out.
I got a death machine.
I am magician. I made his head disappear.
I'm a magician. I made his head disappear.
Great. Almost out of ammo. I hate waiting for that green floaty thingy.
Well, I'm officially out of ammo. Goodbye, guys.
No, are you a power?
Who else wants some of this?
Hey. I
Are you
am
going
a
for him?
woman.
Hey, come here often.
I want my real body back. Happy and yucky.
Oh, that didn't hit anybody.
Shouldn't have kept them in that extra 30 seconds. Like fourth wife. Ugly kid.
Damn.
Well, I cleared out MPD for you, so now it's up to you. I heard ding ding ding, we have a winner, and then Samantha's next line, damn, 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 no bullets, made it sound like she was actually responding to that.
Hey,
oh, you
bud.
just followed me out. I didn't realize you're following me out.
Hey, bud. Don't mind me. I'm just chill here with you.
Alright.
Nikolai enjoys the slaughter.
Oh my god, that crawler just skyrocketed. That was insane.
Rest in peace. I mean, pieces.
Oh, nice.
You're like so welcome.
I need ammunitions.
I think my hit was better, Hellpig. This is awesome.
Alright, this is my last magazine or clip, whatever, with the ray gun.
I only have a knife
What?
now. A big knife.
A big knife.
Wouldn't it be nice if ammo regenerated? The Russian can dream, can't he?
Are y'all having fun?
So much.
I don't have anything to kill with.
That sounded very convincing.
Oh, I forgot. I'm not Rick Toffin anymore.
No, you're Samantha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
That's who's
I
been
was making-
talking
that
this whole
was the reason
time.
why I'm-
Did not I say hands off, zombie?
I didn't realize the zap gun trail is the same as the ray gun trail when it's pack-a-punched.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. either.
Hell yeah, that was cool.
It's
You
the
guys
same,
keep
like,
coming, I'll
red,
keep killing.
like, laser trail as the ray gun. Even has the little splash damage that it looks like, too. Wow, they literally use the exact same,
I need
like,
ammunition.
Yeah. Oh, nice, a death machine. Hey, look at that, you got ammo.
Kinda.
You better protect me because I'm standing still. I'm stretching. Ugh. Whee! Oh, dude, you know what I just thought about? What if you could get Death Machine close enough to the teleporter, go to Groom Lake, and use the Death Machine as long as possible in Groom Lake?
Ooh.
Oh, that would be cool.
That's an idea.
But you would have to get lucky enough to get Death Machine to like spawn on the rim, or even on the teleporter itself, you know? And then they take a second to actually start spawning in Groom Lake. So you'd have like 15 seconds left probably by the time zombies actually started spawning heavily out there. Oh, that grenade did nothing. Good job.
One at a time.
Time to wipe out whole horde.
Bounce and shoot. I'm liking this. I can jump so high. I never
Man,
want to
I'm
go
just
back to
chilling
regular
in Dome.
What?
I think
How
my
did that?
hits was
What?
better, Hellpig.
Why is this not hitting them? Does it have like a maximum amount of targets it can hit or something? Because that's stupid.
Yeah, you know what, Billy? You're right. It is stupid.
It is stupid.
Awesome!
Oh my god, I couldn't hit that guy.
No touching. Some said die.
I smell something cooking. Congratulations, freak bags. You found the ass-kicking line.
How are you doing, Cribs?
Dude, I've been jumping on these launch platforms in the dome, avoiding zombies this whole time.
Wow. So you haven't shot anyone?
Nope.
Are you out of ammo, Crim?
No.
Oh, wow. What an asshole.
What a dick.
Have you guys just been chilling?
I've been killing everything because this guy's out of ammo over here.
Oh, that's cute.
All my ammo.
I'm completely out of ammo. I'm trying to knife zombies right now, man.
I've been protecting this man's life.
Fine, I'll kill what I have.
That never gets old. Booyah! Grovel no more.
I'm on my last magazine of both the ray gun and the wave gun.
Dude, cry about it.
Like a knife a little.
You said cry about it.
Yes, here's why.
Oh!
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Don't touch it.
I no longer need to cry about it. Oh, that was such perfect timing.
Blackjack, freak sacks, you lose.
Oh my gosh, you can see the blown up earth from here too. I'm just thinking about like positioning of the map. I didn't think about that. But yeah, you can see the blown up earth from here.
Where is here? Where you at?
By Mule Kick.
We're outside.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, I see something glowing.
Oh, you're right.
You never want to get that close to a drunk, angry Russian.
You know what? I'm actually gonna. Oh, okay. After you, I want to hit because I want to get rid of these shotguns.
Oh, fuck me.
Nice, bro.
Hit it quick.
I didn't know the song for it changed.
Oh, grab it, grab it.
No, not grabbing that.
Grab it. Dude,
No.
come on, I grabbed the sniper rifle.
Well, that sucks, dude. You shouldn't have done that.
Not a chance.
I'll let you suffer next time, motherfucker.
All right.
God damn it.
That's
If it's any consolation, the box is here in Dome, not far from it.
much consolation. Yeah, he grabbed the sniper, and the box popped out the China Lake for me, and I was not gonna take that.
Dude, that's the best weapon in the game. Why didn't you take that?
I just didn't feel like it. Not feeling it.
Eat shit and puke.
Eat shit and puke.
I smell something cooking.
No touching.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
Oh shit, for real, for real.
Alright, y'all wanna party?
You got big lines.
Remember, close your
Hello?
mouths.
Hello?
Oh shit, 8 more zombie.
Hello, big lines. Please don't mess with me. Oh, hey. Not bad.
Finally, a
Nice.
for a killing machine like me.
What are you gonna get? What are you gonna get? What are you gonna get?
Back to my HS10. Fuck that.
Take that fucking shotgun.
Fine, just to get it cycling quicker, but I'm hitting again. So I just traded to the G11, then back to my HS10s. And then you just got my G11.
G11.
Alright, give me a sniper. I want it. The bull. Oh no!
Please! Please pack a punch that.
You know what? Oh no, because I have 2. Oh, that hurts so bad. Oh, great. Awesome.
I got yours device now.
Hey, nice.
That's all I've been wanting to spin for is some sort of tactical grenade. And I get the bear. I'm stuck with the knives.
Yeah, I got no
Oh no.
GG's, Billiam.
You need to pack a punch that thing.
Oh. Well then you better take me to Groom Lake.
The moon is fucking.
If you want me to pack a punch, you better take me to Groom Lake.
Can't the Pack-a-Punch ballistic knives revive?
Yeah, it has the ability to revive.
Are we gonna go do that?
Why did you have to hit me?
I'm almost there.
Time out.
You
Hang
guys say
on.
so.
I'm just using jump pads. I'll be there in whenever.
Whenever. Yeah, no rush. Take your time.
Don't mind me, I'm just chilling.
I smell something cooking.
I smell something cooking.
Don't mind me, just using my good old spaz.
Oh, hey, there you are. I didn't realize you were right behind me. Alright, time to pack a punch the ballistic knives, I guess.
Bit about beat bop. Beat bop.
I'm gonna pack a punch the spaz 12.
Oh, dude, I mean, that's actually good, though.
I don't know what Rick.
So is the ballistic knives.
I
Oh,
know.
I can breathe. Holy
Only
shit.
for revives. It's not even a one-shot kill pack-a-punch right now. Oh my god.
Cover me.
Never. Don't worry, my claymores will save me.
I mean, they kind of did, actually. They killed that one dog.
This game is really loud without your helmet on.
I just realized, this map doesn't have special rounds.
Oh, okay.
It didn't even dawn on me until I saw the dogs running right now.
The special round is when you choose to come back to Earth.
Right. But it doesn't give you a max ammo or anything.
Nope.
The special
You just
round is
suffer.
supposed to help you out.
We cleared all the zombies.
Wow.
Did we really?
Wait, no, I was gonna say that's not actually a thing, is it?
No, we actually cleared all the zombies to the point where they needed to respawn a whole time.
Yeah, we did. It's funny. But now they're back, so it did not last long. Alright, Cribs. Out there training, I see you. Oh.
Cheater.
Okay.
Cheater.
Oh, the dogs don't care about surgeons, I guess. Dude, this thing just does not hit me. This accuracy is crazy bad. We're about to do it again.
I just got tossed in my mouth.
Nice.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay, well, there goes all my weight gun ammo.
God damn. Oh, do the dogs not spawn until you walk out?
Oh, maybe. So if you stay up here, they won't spawn. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I just revived Jordan with the ballistic knife, and I got a trophy for it.
Nice.
I'm just
There are a
racking up
few
the
achievements. Yeah. Too bad I didn't get any. That makes me sad.
Grab the hacker and hack anything. You get an achievement for that.
I hacked the terminal.
Oh, then you must have already had the achievement.
Maybe. Guys, what are you doing? The water's fine.
Okay.
Oh no, what have we done? I am staying up here where it's safe because I have no ammo.
Why do you think I'm down here? You think I have ammo? Because I do.
Oh, bastard!
You know, when you have all perks and pack-a-punch weapons, it's really not so bad down here.
Yeah, when you have ammo. I got you, don't worry. I got you, both, don't worry.
Dude, Billy coming in clutch with the instant revives.
All because you guys forced me to get the pack-punch ballistic knife.
Forced? How did we force you?
You forced my hand.
Is there an achievement for lasting down here for X amount of time? Because I feel like we're doing it.
Yeah, I am very low on ammo, though.
Yeah, I got 38 shots left.
I have 9 away from. Oh, I have to actually pick my knife back up. That's right.
Silly Billy.
Even the ones from reviving you guys. I didn't know those stayed on the ground. I figured we taking points that I shot randomly. I need to round up some rounds. Don't worry.
Hey, what's up?
How many revives does that give me? I have 17 revives.
Let's go. How many do I have? I got 11. Nice. Jordan, you had 20 downs.
Brother, get good. No. Hey, it's okay. That would be our first 4 games, so it's okay.
Hey, does anybody want to get Jugger? It's here.
Oh, that's so stupid!
What?
The map ate my Gertz device.
Oh. Well, that's not good. I kind of wish there was like an extra box spawn here. You know how cool that would be?
It would
like
be cool.
A permanent box spawn here.
Anyone else want some action?
That would be so sick.
What's up, man?
I am 4 shots away from out of ammo.
And then we're just running.
Yep. We will just be running endlessly.
Oh shit. Oh god.
And as long as I don't go down, we have infinite revives here.
Okay, Jordan, new task. Get Billy to go down.
No!
Oh, bet. Billy!
Just run against the grain.
No, I just saved myself, so...
Hey, Billy.
Well, I'm out of ammo now. Oh, I just realized what these ballistic knives are called.
What are they called?
The Kraus Refibrillator. It ain't gonna work, guys.
Oh, yes it is.
I'm too fast
Yes it
with these
is.
knives. No, it's not.
No!
It's not. Yeah, I told you. Look at that. Look who's still alive. You, that's who.
Hey, Billy.
That's who's still alive is you, Grim.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Wait, you're dodging my knife. What do you mean?
Damn it!
No, I'm actually stuck.
Yeah.
Here, wait. Come here. Get down right next to me really quick. Oh, yeah, revive me, that works. Do it, hell yeah. See, I was saying get down right next to me because I have the ballistic knife while I'm down, so I can revive you while I'm down. I can pick you up to pick me back up.
I don't have any more Gershes, so good luck.
Oh, don't worry, I'll get you. Oh, we got you, okay. Oh no, that's Prince. I thought it was the other way. I thought it was the other way down.
The horde said, nah, you ain't going anywhere.
I thought we were the other way down. It's okay.
There's so many dogs.
Dude, yeah, it's like this whole map is just dogs at this point. Prince, why'd you go up there?
He tried to leave.
Alright,
So
let's
that
get
way
on
it's
teleporter.
harder. That way it's harder for you.
No.
Is it? Wait, did I miss?
Yes, yes you did. Fuck! No! Don't get your ammo, no!
I'm bringing the horde to us.
Dude, I'm so good. I got out, I'm so good.
He didn't know.
Nope, you're not gonna trap me.
No!
Oh. I got him!
Damn it!
I got him again! So quick! Instant, brother!
Billy's the one medic who we just can't get rid of.
Oh no! What?
You went down, yeah!
Hold on, come behind me, I cannot see you. I literally can't see you.
Oh, you got him?
Yes! Okay.
Dude, this is so... How did we make a new game mode out of this?
What, get me down?
Yeah.
And then me play medic? Gotcha. Gotcha, bitch. Okay. Hey, you bastard! Wait for it. You're up.
Nope.
What?
Nope.
Wait, it doesn't work! What do you mean it doesn't work? Chris, you have to get us.
I have a new objective now.
No, Chris.
Hey, yo, Grim. Hey, yo, Grim.
You're so good.
Hey, yo, Grim.
You're so good.
Dude, it ain't hard. I take like 10 hits before I even start going down. I like how this actually isn't that bad.
Yeah, it's really not. Like, this is
It's just noisy.
This feels like the most fun I've had so far. The Easter egg was just stressful.
True. Alright, I'm sacrificing myself.
No! Brother, don't do it!
Here I am. No,
Gotcha.
Oh my god. Ooh. I know exactly where I need to go down. Oh, there's no way.
Oh, you want to bet? You want to bet? Oh, I almost went down though. That would have been sad.
No, stay here. Stay. Scissor with me.
No!
Told you.
Hey, I didn't even see, I didn't have the chance to try and come and get you yet. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I think I would have.
because you died.
Yep, alright. 30 downs.
Oh, that's so funny, dude.
Oh.
Holy crap.
What a way to end that, dude. That was insane.
That's where I stopped recording. Holy shit.
GG's
Oh my
fellas.
gosh.
That was so funny. Oh my god.
That was great.
Oh my god. That gave me a headache, but it was so fucking funny.
It was so funny. That's gonna be the clip, Billy. It's not gonna be us completing the Easter egg. It's gonna be us running around.
So what were you guys doing for the last couple rounds there? Oh, just trying to kill our
It wasn't even a couple rounds. That was all the same round, brother.
That was like 15 whole minutes.
Oh my god. Dude, GG's. That's pure serotonin.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that Easter egg wasn't so bad. It's just the 2-hit downs.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that just made it harder wasn't even the 2-hit downs. It was the gravity. Trying to get used to it was such a pain.
It's a combination of the gravity, 2-hit downs, and the Nova crawlers. All of that sucks. And never having ammo. My god, I didn't realize how scarce ammo actually is.
We ran out of ammo so often without the special rounds. That's the issue without the special rounds. Yeah.
For sure, dude.
But hey, you know what that means, guys?
We're on to Black Ops 1, baby! Or Black Ops 2, shit! No!
Black Ops 2!
That reminds me, Billy, look at your gifts in Steam.
Let's see. One new gift. You did not!
Did you get the Black Ops 2?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, brother.
Nice.
You just gotta get the DLC.
Alright, yeah, that's fair.
I gotta buy Black Ops 2 myself.
You got time, dude. You got time.
Black Ops 2 is on sale. Like,
It was. I don't think it's on sale because I had to buy it full price for him. So it was on sale before though.
Well, damn.
Oh my gosh, though, that was just pure beauty.
Yes,
that was so much fun, dude.
It was a lot easier than you expected it to be.
It was. You know, when Gage was saying knives, snowballs, whatever, we're basically doing less than that.
we were essentially only doing that because we ran out of ammo so long.
I mean, hardly, yeah.
Oh my
Fucking
god.
Billy with the. Imagine all three of us had Pack-a-Punch ballistic knives. That'd be insane.
That would be. We would never. I don't think we could ever lose.
Oh no.
Well, because you couldn't revive while you were down, right?
I guess not. No, I shot him like 3 times and it did nothing. I thought it would.
And I wasn't even dodging that time.
God, that was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
That was so good.
So we ready now?
Good. Huh? Oh god, sorry.
I am calling it a night.
Oh yeah,
Thanks
dude.
for playing, dude. Thanks for playing,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Oh.
Thank you so much, dude. That was such a great time.
Honestly, I cannot wait for the next one. That was super fun. And God, I can't wait to go back and look at this recording.
Dude, I can't wait either. It's gonna be so good.
Oh my gosh. Y'all have a good night.
You too,
good night, brother.
Have a good night,
Until
dude.
next time.
Well, in the little console thing in the main menu area where you can like break out of the chair, damn Clankers doesn't do anything.
Damn. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. Yep. Just had to test it out.
Let's find somebody to raid, dude.
Hell yeah, brother.
And actually get some sleep. It's only midnight. That's amazing.
Oh, dude, honestly. Oh, I am so tired right now too, I guess. So yeah, holy crap.
I know, yeah. It's perfect. It's naturally just fall asleep. Who's on that we can share
Richard Nixon?
the love to? Oh shit. Are they live?
No, I have a list of everyone who's logged into this computer, and R. Nixon is one of them.
Nice.
Oh, Frank Woods. Mason. Weaver.
Oh my god. The precursors. Oh my god, that one Billy kid, he's live.
Oh, no way. Dude, I heard that guy's so sick.
Raid Sumisu?
Dude, you know who's live?
Who?
Crims. The Crimson.
No, we're gonna take Jordan's suggestion. It's been a minute since we raided Amy. She's playing the new Metroid for the Nintendo Switch too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Thanks, Jordan. Here, I'll send it to you, Billy.
Send me that name, brother.
Oh, I almost sent it to Jordan.
He's already got it.
He already knows, yeah. /raid Amy Sumisu. Bam. Done.
Yeah, man.
Thank you everybody for chilling with us, who's been lurking with us. We greatly appreciate it. Oh my god, Kat, thank you so much for lurking. Good night, you legend. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm taking a break from zombies. Probably not gonna be jumping back into zombies until either later this week or next Monday. And we're starting on Black Ops 2. Oh my god.
Yes, sir. We are. We're getting Black Ops 2 finally.
So fucking excited, man. GG's.
We've only made it through 2 games. Is all that means.
Nah, technically 3. Technically 3.
How so 3?
We're caught up on Black Ops 7 right now, technically.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess we're counting Black Ops 7.
Which, by the way, I already marked in the Discord.
I did see that, yeah. Oh, Kelly,
but...
I'm sorry.
Kelly, we gotta go, Kelly.
Go with the raid. Go with the raid and watch.
Origin Zero come, hell yeah. But yeah, guys, see you again later. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. See you in the raid.
Hell
Peace.
yeah, dude.
Toodaloo. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.